Okay. Ooh, fucking hell. Sorry. Blue forgot about the stream. I didn't. I'm here. Who else? Raise your hand if you're here and if you want to know how the spell ends, because I do. We're now, today, seeing Roxanne's perspective. And afterwards, we're going to conclude the story. Hello, hi. Hello, everyone. Let's see what the teacher has to say for her defense. If she has to say anything at all. Roxanne's perspective. I hope I'm not keeping him waiting, she thought to herself as she crossed the road with hasty footsteps. That is until she remembered that he's usually the one who's late during the get-together, and so her pacing slowed down quite a bit by that realization. He won't die for an extra minute or two. What? She couldn't help herself but smile. What made him change his mind? He was so distant the last couple of days, but then he sent her an email this evening, apologizing to her and even inviting her to dinner at 8 p.m. A Monday night of all things. It was extremely rare for them to meet on Monday nights, so it had to be special. Right? She was a bit surprised when she received the email though. Normally he would use his private cell phone in order to contact her, but instead he sent her an email from a weird address she had never seen before. Oh shit, the wife sent an email instead. She found out the address, sent an email, set up the dinner with the husband so that she would see them together happily. Oh my god, it wasn't Roxanne, it was the wife. She killed themselves. It was actual murder-suicide, and she's trying to frame Roxanne. And of course, Minecraft Steve found that out and was so distraught about the fact that his sister killed herself and her husband, realizing that he just wouldn't be able to tell Eloise that fact. That literally her mother is the worst person on earth. Holy shit. That's my theory, at least. And remember, it's what's it called? A game theory? Is that? No, wait. What's the fucking thing called? A meme? I can't remember. But she knew it was him. She knew because they have that special way with which they contact one another. Cryptography. She doesn't know much on the subject, but Patrick told her it was the best way to keep the conversations private, and so she trusted him. All she has to do is use the software he created in order to encrypt the emails she sends, or decrypt the emails she receives, and voila, they can send each other messages that only they can decipher. And so the fact that she could decrypt the email she received with his software is proof enough that it was him and not someone else. It's a theory, a game theory. That's right, that's the one, I couldn't remember. Oh, I don't really watch YouTube. But 8 p.m. was weird for a dinner invitation. At 6 it would be kind of the norm, but at 9 it would be much more romantic, but 8, that was kind of a boring hour. What? Wait, 6 is okay, 9 is alright, but 8 is boring? What about 7 then? That's slightly alright, I guess. It's the average. Then again, who was she to judge? It didn't matter. She was simply happy to see him again. So happy. It's been more than a week since they last saw each other, and she missed him much more than she thought she would. I really would like to know what goes on in the head of a mistress, of a woman that meets another man who has a wife. Or for that matter, in the head... Oh, I know what goes through the mind of a man who meets a woman who is married. He wants to fuck. Like, that's it. But what goes on in the head of a woman who meets a married man? Does she think that she has a chance? Does she think that, oh, he's gonna leave her sooner or later? Does she think that he won't do the same to her somewhere down the line? Like, it seems slightly illogical, right? She missed him much more than she thought she would. Yes. She created all kinds of scenarios in her head. She was even starting to think that his wife had noticed it, their relationship. Yet that was unfounded, or else they wouldn't be meeting like this. She was now in front of the restaurant. In the end, she'd been quicker than she thought she would. She was a bit early even, so she decided to waste a bit more time by lighting herself a cigarette. She found a dark place at the side of the restaurant and smoked while trying to spot Patrick's car in the parking lot. She didn't like to be seen smoking because of her job as an elementary school teacher. She didn't smoke a lot, and she could probably stop whenever she wanted to, of course. So why tell the whole world about it? She finally spotted the red paint of his vehicle in the parking lot, so he was there after all, and before her even. That's a first. She had a small celebration in her mind. Then she realized there was someone crouching near his car. Was it Patrick? No, it was hard to see from where she was standing, but that shadow didn't quite fit Patrick's stature. What if it was Eloise that killed her parents? What was he doing there? Did he drop his key on the floor or something? Well, no matter. The important fact was that Patrick was waiting for her. She wanted to trash a cigarette and go to him right away, but her pride thought otherwise. In the end, she took her time before finally throwing it away. She started walking to the front door, all the while looking through the restaurant windows in order to find his bright blue eyes. And to her surprise, she did. Quite easily, in fact, as he was sat next to a window. I'm sure the wife chose the table. He didn't notice her. He was drinking a glass of wine, and somehow there were 2 bottles on the table in front of him, as if he was midway drinking a second bottle of the night. As if someone wanted to make him drunk. She wanted to knock on the window, but then she realized something, or to put it in better terms, she realized that there was someone else. Someone walking to his table, almost as if they weren't here before, but rather in the parking lot, and sitting right in front of him. A woman. His waifu. He had a smile on his face, he seemed a bit drunk, a bit too drunk, and he seemed to have a good relationship with his wife, surprisingly enough. Almost as if she never realized that. Roxanne was dumbstruck. She froze on the spot. She didn't understand what was going on. She simply looked at them for a time, enough for one of them to notice her. Not the good one, though. His wife looked at her and smiled innocently. Roxanne smiled back, not knowing how to react in this kind of situation. Wait, what? Oh, look! Look, hubby. Look, Patrick. It's the teacher, or the ex-teacher of our daughter. Isn't that a curious coincidence? Yeah, I guess so. Should she enter the restaurant and dine by herself? Should she simply walk back home? Or maybe even go speak to his wife? Why? Why? They know each other after all. Oh. I had a moral choice if I should watch you a 2K audience speedrun a Schoolgirls 1. It really depends on what game the speedrun is running. Tell us, please. By the time it took her to deliberate, they were already gone. She had looked away for a couple of seconds at most, but that was all it took. She started walking slowly to the front door without a clear goal in mind. Her mind was elsewhere. Why was he with his wife when it was her that he invited? Did his wife invite him and he had no choice but to comply? Was it some kind of subtle way to tell Roxanne that he had chosen his wife over her? Very subtle, yes. That he didn't want to see her anymore? Or was it something else entirely? Little nightmares too. Didn't even know you could speedrun that one. Her hand finally grabbed the door's handle unconsciously. She was still looking at her feet, deep in her thought. She had stopped moving. She was that surprised. She was that shocked. She looked through the front door's window, but she had probably missed them. They were nowhere near the front desk. They had already paid their tab and were on their way home by the looks of it. Ah. She felt stupid to even conceptualize misunderstandings from what she'd just witnessed. She had understood his message perfectly well and was a lot more depressed about it than she would like to admit. She walked away, emptily. The joy she thought she would feel that night was all but stolen away from her. The walk back home was especially difficult. I mean, I'm giving her a lot of shit, but Jesus Christ. What do you expect if you're with a man who's married? Seriously, don't do that. Don't. Just don't. I know, right? You can't choose who to love, but either make it clear for everyone involved or just break it off. You can find someone else, I guess. Was that some kind of plot to frame it for murder? Yes, that was it. I said so earlier. I think the wife set it all up. She created a murder-suicide, but framed the teacher for it. And Steve must have realized by her eyewitness account or something, and due to the fact that some things just didn't add up. She was mindlessly watching TV while eating. Now, the only thing we're still waiting to find out is whether or not Steve dies due to the shot to his gut. She didn't want to think about anything, so television was kind of an anesthetic for her, it seems. She had cried a bit, but very little. She was impressed by her own composure. True, she had already cried a lot during her relationship with him. After all, she was having an intimate relationship with a married man. She loved him, or at least she thought she did, but now she wasn't so sure anymore. Why was she so indifferent right now? She thought she would cry harder in the situation, but it clearly wasn't the case. Oh my god. Like, this woman is broken. No wonder that she fell. I don't know if you can call it that she fell for Steve. I guess we're gonna see if she really fell for him during her perspective now, but did she already anticipate it? Was she bracing herself for this very moment for such a long time that when it was all said and done, she could no longer feel a thing? Her mood went up little by little. She was strong, stronger than she thought at least. She knew in the depths of her heart that it couldn't go on like this. He had a wife and a kid. He would never have left them for her, and she didn't want that either. Or maybe she did. Maybe she wanted to replace his wife, have a kid like his daughter, Eloise, but those were stupid fantasies. The last thing she wanted was to make their child unhappy, and so, if you look at it from this angle, everything was better that way. That's right. The piece of salad she then put in her mouth tasted the same as the lie she just fed herself. Bitter and unsatisfying. Who the fuck eats salad? Okay, this might sound a little bit like American of me. Who the fuck comes home from a very depressing moment and decides to eat salad to cheer themselves up? Where's the chips, the chocolate, the wine? Jesus Christ. I eat salad. Okay. Her eyes were drawn to the lighter on the table in front of her. But do you eat salad to cheer yourself up? His lighter. He had dropped it on the floor of the hotel room the last time they'd met. The last time they'd made love. She had meant to give it back to him tonight. The love? But now there might not be another occasion for her to do so. It's been more than half a year since they started this weird yet satisfying relationship. And the only thing she had of him was this lighter, which wasn't even hers to keep. It's the price to pay for being so cautious, she thought in discontentment. Then something caught her attention, and for something to catch her attention in her current state of mind, it had to be something extreme. She turned up the sound of the television. A news anchor was talking about an accident. A car accident. Maybe she really was investigating on her own, and that's why she got close to Steve, because she suspected him or something. Something gripped at her heart. Her awareness of the world surrounding her shrank in an instant. The two names displayed on the screen were well known to her. Familiarly known to her? My Jesus. Her eyes turned again to the light in front of her, while a voice inside her head was repeating the same thing over and over again. It can't be happening. It can't be happening. It can't be happening. Her eyes filled with tears. Reality finally settled in. He was dead. The man she loved was dead. That night she cried her heart out. Personal question, have you enjoyed a bike ride this year already? Yes, I bike to work almost every single day actually. But what does it mean? Should we be worried? No, not at all. It's only natural for kids her age to have a hard time with mathematics. Alas, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, honey, you worry too much about it. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before she has the hang of it. I worry too much. If you were there to teach us sometimes, then maybe we wouldn't be here today. Isn't math your specialty anyway? I have work. Can't always be there for her. And you think I can? I've work too, you know. I never said anything about this. Or rather, I didn't ask for this conversation. But you thought it. Jesus Christ. What a woman to deal with. No, I didn't. Can we please go back to Eloise? I have other appointments. Yes, please. I need some fresh air. Honey, wait! The husband got up from his seat, but then sat right back down the moment he realized how inappropriate it would be to follow his wife and leave in the middle of a meeting with the teacher of his child. What? Why? Why would this be inappropriate? Sorry about that. My wife has it hard right now. Oh, I'm sure you have it hard too, touches his leg. Really, why is that? Well, she's a designer, but right now she's kind of suffering from something akin to the blank page syndrome, if you know what I mean. I see. It's a shame. Yeah, a real shame. There are no truer words. I still remember how beautiful she was when she simply lost herself to the creation process. I could look at her for hours on end. I was simply awed by how pure and sincere she was back then. Mr. Ledoux, what a name, was distantly looking through one point in space, probably recalling the time his wife was still creating. Do you know why she's like this? His eyes returned to Roxanne dubiously. I mean, why she's blocked up? Artistically speaking. Blocked up. Don't have a clue, but if I had to guess, I would say her brother, without hesitation. Disdain. It was the look on this amiable man's face. Her brother? Sorry, we don't have much time, do we? Yes, that's right. His mood had shifted for the worse. She felt bad for being insensitive, so she tried to change the subject. But before continuing, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for a living? I don't mind. I work at a tech company. Really? Do you do websites and that sort of thing? Mostly web design, yes, but sometimes software engineering too. Oh, I was just thinking about creating a website for my students in order to help with their learning. Nowadays, kids seem to be easier to reach that way. Do you think your company could help me with that? Yeah, surely. I could probably give you a discount, too, since you've been watching my daughter so diligently. Really? What's your email? For the first time that night, Mr. Ledoux seemed to have forgotten his sadness. He seemed genuinely sweet. I enjoy a good raw cabbage over chips. What's wrong with you? 1 week after the incident, by the way. That's when we meet her, or rather she meets Steve and Eloise. She was mechanically going about her usual routine. It was the only trick she had found in order to soothe the pain. It had been a week day to day since he had died. She'd cried so much during that time that she had even come to the understanding that tears could eventually run out. What came after the tears was complete and utter emptiness. She had tried to maintain a facade in front of her students, but it only came off as being overly fake. Or maybe they always thought she looked fake. After all, she always had that big smile on her face. It's only recently, though, that she realized how extremely exhausting that was. Even now she was faking, walking in the supermarket with a light complexion on her visage as if nothing was wrong with her. Or visage, if you're like English. You'd think 1 week could somehow alleviate the grief, but you'd be dead wrong. It's only when you're in this kind of position that you notice how time is of little help. At least a short amount of time, that is. She was making her way towards the vegan section. She had tried fake chicken the night prior and thought it was kind of gross. Ham should be a safer bet, unless they're still out of... Suddenly, someone bumped into her. Sorry, she said reflexively. She wasn't even looking at the person in front of her. In fact, she didn't even know if it was a man or a woman. She didn't want to deal with anybody, and so she said what needed to be said in order to end the interaction quickly. No, I'm the one who's sorry. I didn't see you there. That's alright. It's my fault. She tried to cut it short, but this man was persistent for some reason. Not at all. I'm the one who bumped into you, so... She finally looked at him. He was a tall, lean, but still kind of imposing man. He was scary somehow, though he had a genuine apologetic expression on his face. Really? Genuine? You don't need to apologize. It could happen to anybody. No, I'm truly sorry, really. Sometimes I'm deep in thought and not totally aware of my surroundings. I hope it didn't hurt you. Not at all, not at all. Please, don't worry about it. She was starting to get exhausted. All she wanted was to be left alone. Steve, I didn't find the pastor. You sure you saw them? A small voice then tickled Roxanne's ears. It was a familiar, cute voice. Oh, that's alright, sweetheart. Don't worry about it. The man said in a cheerful manner. Sweetheart? She looked down towards where the small, fragile-sounding voice came from. Eloise? Is it you? My God, how have you been? Deep blue eyes, just like her father. As if she never lost it, Roxanne's smile easily reappeared onto her face. Roxanne has always had a weak spot for Eloise, ever since the first time she saw her in her class. She had thought about her multiple times that week, wondering what had become of her now that her parents were gone, and all of a sudden she was there, right in front of her, almost close enough for Roxanne to hug her. Miss Roxanne? She still remembered her. Eloise remembered her name. Roxanne had to put in a lot of effort not to burst out crying. Yes, I'm happy you still remember my name. How are you? I heard about what happened. I'm alright. Eloise looked down as if remembering the source of her pain. Great, look what you've done. She's sad now. Roxanne was antagonizing herself, wondering how she could manage to always put a dirty foot in her mouth like that. Whoa, that's lewd. She's actually been quite stressed as of late. You understand, right? Poor thing, she said with genuine concern. Then she took another look at that man. She had almost forgotten about him for a moment. He had referred to Eloise as sweetheart, didn't he? Who was he? Eloise was about to say something, but the man cut her short. But what am I thinking? I still haven't introduced myself. I'm Steve, the new guardian. And you are? That's right. Eloise had to have new parents now that her mother and father had passed away, but still, that man doesn't seem qualified to take care of a kid. Maybe he has a wife who takes good care of her? Wow, how rude. You see a man and you think he's not enough to take care of a child? What? Don't worry about it. My name is Roxanne. I was a 5th grade teacher. Nice to meet you. That's why you two know each other. Did she have good grades? He said teasingly. Yes, in fact she did. She's a very bright girl. Was he trying to seduce her? Does that mean he doesn't have a wife? For a single man like him to take care of someone else's kid, who in the world was he to Eloise? Wonderful. The man patted Eloise on the head without a second thought. He has to be someone close, that's for sure, Roxanne finally concluded, a bit relieved. I mean, this guy, yeah, okay, we know about him, okay, we know what's his deal. But if you just saw someone randomly on the street, like if you see a father with his daughter out on the street, you don't think, oh, I sure hope he has a good wife. I mean, that's very rude. I'm hungry, she says. Eloise said, looking tired of the whole conversation. It can't be helped. She probably wants to get back home as soon as possible. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the way, aren't I? No, don't be silly. Though when Steve said that, Roxanne knew perfectly well when she was not wanted. I need to get going anyway. I have work waiting at home. At least it was worth going to the supermarket today. Seeing how strong Eloise was had warmed Roxanne's heart. She had gained a bit of courage now, if only a little. I understand, but before you go, I have a favor to ask of you if you don't mind. A favor? Roxanne was taken aback. What kind of favor could this man possibly ask of her? You see, the man walked away from Eloise, forcing Roxanne to follow him in order to hear what he has to say. Since her parents died, she's been extremely depressed, and while I've been doing everything I can to make her feel comfortable, she doesn't trust me yet. But that's only fair. I mean, we haven't seen each other since she was 8 months old, so I'm kind of a stranger to her. I see. So Eloise was living with a stranger after all. Even if he was a close member of the family, they still don't know each other at all. She must be extremely on edge right now, and in pain. Just like Roxanne. So I was thinking, since you personally know her, and she seems to appreciate you, maybe you could one day sometime look after her for an hour or so? If you have the time, that is. Her? Could you really do that? Could you really look after Eloise? Sure, she wanted to help. Hell, Patrick talked about her so much that it's almost as if she was closely related to Roxanne already. But Roxanne couldn't help but feel guilty. After all, she betrayed Eloise the moment that she started having a relationship with her father. I'm not so sure. Please, think about it. It would be a one-time thing, just to show her there are still people caring about her. She's been so down lately. Roxanne deeply wanted to help. Eloise was the living embodiment of Patrick's love. Also, she had something no other kid had. Even though she was rarely ever speaking in class, she was always standing out somehow. Was Eloise special? Or did Roxanne's objectivity fail her, as she saw her younger self in that beautiful little girl? Either way, she wanted to get closer to her. She wanted to be friends with her. I understand. If the opportunity arises, then sure, why not? Fantastic. The man had a huge smile on his face. He seemed to really care about the girl's well-being. So why did something feel off? It felt as if he was exhausted for some reason. Roxanne walked away while waving at Eloise and Steve one last time. When she turned a corner, she heaved a deep sigh. That was exhausting. Just like that man was. Exhausted. Was he also forcing himself somehow? Maybe he was in pain too. Obviously, the deaths of Patrick and his wife must have affected a lot more people than just Roxanne. A kindred soul. Then she realized she had forgotten about her ham. And now it was too late. She couldn't possibly go back. It would be too awkward. It's a shame. Now she'll have to improvise. Just get a cucumber. She walked back inside her classroom. Classes had ended 20 minutes ago and she had to leave in a hurry in order to make last-minute photocopies. If she didn't do it then, she would have to wait the next morning. She couldn't afford that. Now she had come back to tidy up a little and lock the door before going back home. However, as she entered the room, she quickly noticed a girl, one of her students, still sat at her desk, quietly sobbing. Roxanne still hasn't been discovered yet. What was the good answer then? Leave? Reach out to the girl? The last thing she wanted was to be insensitive, but the thing is, both actions could be considered as such. She remembered what her grandfather used to tell her. When there are no obvious answers, simply be true to yourself. As long as there's no hidden motive behind your actions, you know it is most likely the right decision. So she did just that. She walked to the student, sat on a chair next to her, and simply waited. She didn't say a thing, didn't push her to leave, didn't ask questions, didn't even smile for that matter. Simply waited until that child decided to speak of her own volition. After a time, their eyes met. Deep blue eyes, just like her own. Why are you waiting? The girl asked timidly. Because I want to. Won't you ask me to leave? It's late. It's not late, and you can stay as long as you want, until you feel better at the very least. She's usually cheerful, that fragile-looking girl, Eloise. Roxanne always had a hard time with names, but not with hers. I won't feel better. Why is that? Fighting, Her voice cracked. My parents are always fighting. I see. All couples fight, you know? They do it to understand each other. The real problem starts when one of them does a fatality on the other one. Roxanne never felt quite comfortable with those sorts of issues. Family issues. Still, it was certainly not the first time she had that discussion with one of her students. Not like mine. They don't want to understand each other. They want to hurt each other. Yeah, again, the fatality. I see. Roxanne remembered the meeting with Eloise's parents less than a month ago. She had feared as much back then, and what she'd feared seems to be warranted. Resentment, the destructive devil feeding off a relationship. Roxanne knew that devil intimately well. Miss Roxanne, can I ask you a question? Yes. What did I do wrong? You? About your parents fighting? Where's that idea coming from? I don't know, but I must have. I mean, Dad sent me a message telling me he won't be able to come pick me up. But he must have forgotten that Mom had a meeting today with someone important and that she can't pick me up either. So I called my mom asking her if she can do something about it, and she started getting really angry, saying she will call my dad and force him to come, but she still hasn't called me since, and she's probably fighting with him. And he probably forgot about me, so you see, I did something wrong. She only now noticed that both of her hands were forming a fist. Roxanne's heart was beating faster than usual. Was this what you call being furious? No, you didn't. Oh, let me sit in my chair differently. But they are fighting because of me. No, they aren't. It's just another excuse for the absurd dispute, Roxanne wanted to say, but didn't. She knew perfectly well how the little girl felt, how disgusting parents can become. Instead, she forced a smile on her face and said, everything will be fine, alright? Roxanne didn't want her words to be empty. She really wanted to do something about it. There were no hints of falsehood in her voice. Really? The little girl asked timidly. Yes, I promise you. Now come, I'll take you home. She remembered the message Eloise's father had given her. She'll have to talk to him directly, it seems. I'll do something about it, she promised in her heart. Gonna fuck your dad. Gonna make him... No, I'm gonna call him daddy too or something. Jesus. First day. She had avoided news channels entirely since the accident. It is not an understatement to say that she'd been traumatized by how suddenly and matter-of-factly the news of Patrick's death was given to her. So it was on the internet instead that she found out about it. Found out that Patrick's accident might actually be a murder. The first sentence of the article says, the police have been investigating the incident for the past week, claiming it could potentially lead to murder. That's ridiculous. They had drank, Patrick and his wife. She'd seen the 2 bottles of wine on the table that night. It was definitely an accident. It must have been an accident. How can you kill someone by faking a car accident in the first place? Although she was agitated, she couldn't stop reading. The brake pipes had small cuts on their largest pressure points. It's just stupid. They're not supposed to be in a badly directed movie. Things like that are not possible in real life. That's just stupid. She started crying. An accident was one thing, but to think that someone would want to harm them? That's awful. She didn't want to believe it. Then something came to mind. Why didn't she realize it sooner? The shadow, the one that was crouching near Patrick's car on that fateful night? Who was it? She didn't pay close attention to it during that time. Its features are very blurry in her mind. Could have been a woman for all she knows, though she would have to be tall. She started reading once again, trying to find out if they'd apprehended a suspect yet, but to her disappointment, they hadn't. It was frustrating. The article answered none of Roxanne's questions. Instead, she was now left even more confused than she was before. And there was even more. There was a slight feeling of discomfort in her chest, because the article implicitly stated that anyone who was at that restaurant that night could be a suspect, meaning that she was too. She got up to her feet nervously and started pacing around for no reason. She was trying to stay calm but couldn't. She knew she had done nothing wrong, but the facts were still there. She had a relationship with a married man, and that same man was now dead. His wife too, supposedly murdered. And Roxanne? She was at the crime scene around the same time that the crime took place. Most of all, the police understood that the victim usually knows the killer, which made things even more incriminating for her. The only silver lining she could find was Patrick's overly discreet nature. With the cryptography and the precautions they usually took whenever they met, she wouldn't be surprised if the police didn't know about the relationship. Who could have done something like this? Who could have? She was now shaking, angry. Her pain was no longer due to an act of randomness. She had found something to push the blame onto, to curse and to hate. While still pacing mindlessly in her apartment, the digital clock on her desk finally caught her attention. She had to stop thinking about it, or else she would not be able to face her students in an hour time. She took a couple of deep breaths, finished what was left of her coffee, and started preparing for a long day of work. Interesting. So it is, as I thought before, she's now investigating herself. Like, not herself, but on her own. She was smoking at the back of the school, 5 minutes before the start of the classes. More than a week ago, she had suddenly taken up this bad habit, unable to face her students without decompressing a bit. And she once thought she could do without it. Her mind was especially clouded today, all because of that stupid article. She took Patrick's lighter out of her purse mechanically and looked at it emptily. Earlier today, she got rid of the cell phone he gave her because she didn't want to take any chances with the police, but she still couldn't get rid of his lighter. It was the only thing left of him after all. Patrick. A murder. Was it real? Was it cold hard truth? She didn't want to think it true, but the police were rarely wrong with those things. Were they? And she could do nothing to help. She knew no one who hated him. In fact, she knew none of Patrick's families or friends at all, except maybe... A face popped into her mind. A man. What was his name again? Then, out of nowhere, the door next to her opened. A tall, lean man was behind it. A smiling, but still kind of scary-looking man. Huh? Steve? She hid Patrick's lighter behind her back. She was surprised she could think straight in this kind of situation. What are you doing here? That's right, Steve. That's the name of the mysterious man who's become Eloise's guardian. What could he possibly be doing here? Roxanne, what a pleasant surprise. To tell you the truth, I had to take a breath of fresh air. I have a job interview in like 5 minutes, so... What? Here? She couldn't hide her surprise. Of all the places he could be working, talk about coincidences. Yeah. That's great. Is it for the janitor job? One of them quit on us 2 days ago after some kids threw spoiled milk at him. Yes, janitor job. By the way, you remember about the favor I asked you? Are you still up for it? There it is. She's been anticipating this moment. She was actually happy he was following through on this, even though it's supposed to be a favor that she's giving and not the other way around. Huh? Yeah, sure. When would that be? Tonight. Tonight? That's... And here she thought she would have some time to mentally prepare for it. What is she going to talk about with Eloise? Should they watch a movie together? And what about dinner? At what hour is this anyway? Please. I'd owe you one. Oh, alright, fine, but I won't forget that, Dab. I'm a stingy person, you know. That was so like her, hiding her excitement like that by being playful. I know that pretty well, actually. What? Was it just her, or did he say something extremely creepy just now? I said you're too hard on yourself. Why don't we exchange phone numbers then? Sure. Was it really that, though? In the middle of exchanging numbers, the bell rang. Oh no, I'm late. I got to go, she said, her mind already inside the classroom. 5:30, alright? I'll mail you the address. Right. She started walking to the door hurriedly. Wait. What is it? What did he want now of all times? You should probably trash that before going. Trash? She looked at where he was looking, and sure enough, there was still a cigarette smoking in between Roxanne's fingers. Oh! She let go of it, surprised. Thanks. She then entered the school, even more restless than before. She was at least thankful that he had noticed the lighter still inside her fist. Yeah, if he had, I mean, this would have gone very differently if he had noticed the lighter earlier, right? You can do this. She was in front of their door, lacking the conviction to actually knock. She had thought about it all day long, how to befriend Eloise, how to show her that she cares. She knows it's something that should come naturally, but even still, she was hesitating to take a step forward. She was scared of being hated. Obviously, you would think that Roxanne would be especially good with children, since she's always around them. But sadly for her, that wasn't quite the case. She was still struggling to be accepted by them. After all, just because you like kids doesn't mean that they will like you in return. Roxanne knew she was missing something. She simply didn't know what that thing was. Here goes nothing. She finally knocked on the door. Weakly, it was answered almost instantly. It was as if Steve was waiting in front of the door the whole time. Roxanne! Steve exclaimed with excitement. So you did make it after all. After all, I did say I'd come, did I not? Yes, but you were running late, so I thought something might have happened. Late? She looked at her watch. It was 5:35, 5 minutes later than the time he'd asked her to come. This is his definition of late? Roxanne thought in amazement. Hi, Miss Roxanne. A much cuter voice then made its appearance. Eloise! Roxanne's whole attention shifted to Eloise the moment she appeared in her line of sight. Steve said you were not feeling very well and he didn't want to leave you alone while he was going away, so that's why he asked me to look after you. He's really worried about you. You must be very happy to have someone like him looking out for you. She was smiling excessively, trying to put Eloise at ease. Yeah, very much so. Eloise looked the other way with a hint of discomfort, though she tried her best to hide it. Was Roxanne forcing things after all? But trying too much to make her feel comfortable? Maybe she was actually doing the opposite? I'll be going then. I've already prepared dinner, so please help yourself. And thank you again for listening to my selfish request. Oh, that's right, Steve is still there. No, it's nothing. She was one of my students, so it's the least I can do. And you didn't have to prepare dinner for us. I would have handled myself just fine. In fact, she was hoping for an opportunity to show how much of a great cook she was. Which won't be today, unfortunately. Why did she want to show how much of a great cook she was? To impress the girl? I'm sure you would have. Now, if you'll excuse me, and sweetheart, stay strong, alright? Steve quickly left thereafter, leaving an awkward atmosphere behind him. They both looked at each other silently, neither of them really knowing how to handle the other. Compelled to keep the interaction going, Roxanne proclaimed, "Let's eat," with an overly exaggerated demeanor. Looking forward to finding out what she did in his room, what she found to make her even more suspicious, or maybe less suspicious. She sat in front of Eloise, apprehensive of what was on the menu. Yet to her surprise, her fear was unfounded. At first she thought she'd have to force herself to eat meat, but then realized it was actually a vegetarian recipe. Talk about a coincidence! And even more than that, to Roxanne's utter amazement, it looked and tasted quite good. Though the mood was still a bit tense, the tasty meal sitting before them was a good incentive for conversations. That's good, very good, I'm genuinely impressed, she said with honesty. A great cook? That's the kind of man I would fall for. Tee. She did believe a man who knows how to cook was a plus, but it didn't really go further than that. Still, Eloise seemed to like that man, Steve, so Roxanne wanted to make a good impression. And who knows, he was kind of handsome in his own way. Even then, Eloise didn't reply or open up to her. Just a little push, she thought. Who is Steve to you anyway? I mean, is he your uncle? The brother of your father, maybe? Of my mother. Your mother, I see. Her mother, then that means... She forced a smile on her face, but she had a hard time covering her shock. She had heard of him before. The brother of Patrick's wife. She had heard bad things. Why did you accept Steve's request? Don't you have a lot of work to do? Eloise asked suddenly, cutting off Roxanne's train of thought in the process. What do you mean? You know I would help any way I can. With everything that happened to you, I know we weren't especially close, but I always liked you. Are you not happy to see me? I'm happy, I guess. Good. To be honest, you've been on my mind for some time now. Such a tragedy what happened. I knew your father a little because of the parent-teacher meeting, so it shocked me quite a bit when I heard the news, but I'm glad to see you in such good shape. Eloise then fell silent. Did Roxanne say something wrong? Maybe speaking of her parents was casually still hard for her. I need to go to the washroom. Where is it? First on your left, in front of Steve's room. Eloise pointed to the corridor, and Roxanne quickly made her way to the bathroom. The air was starting to get heavy back there, but that wasn't the reason why Roxanne escaped. The reason was, what's this all about? Her mother's brother? How come? She'd heard of him. Patrick had talked about him quite a few times, and every time it was to vent his frustration. Damn, look at the fucking... Wow, look at that chest of a man. She didn't remember much of what he had said, but there were two pieces of information she had unconsciously extracted from those conversations. One, this man only brings misfortune wherever he goes. Two, this man is literally me and dangerous. Even for Patrick, who was about 6'5" and pretty muscular, the way he talked of him made her understand that he somehow feared him. And this man was now living alone with a little girl? How big in centimeters, in like regular measurements, are 6'5"? Can someone Google that for me? Because I don't think anyone knows, actually. She didn't know what to think of it. Well, Steve was kind of scary, he didn't look violent to her. But then again, a lot of Roxanne's friends often told her she was a bad judge of character. Really? It seems to be quite a common trait with the women in this visual novel. What should she do? Nothing? Observe? Be direct? All of the above? Surely there must be a right answer. Then a wild thought emerged in her mind. Something ridiculous, something absurd. The article she had read earlier today was definitely the cause of such a stupid idea. A murder. Something which is 80% of the time perpetrated by someone close to the victim, and a shady, dangerous man appearing out of nowhere to take custody of the daughter. Was it simply a coincidence? Could he be the one behind it? Was he the shadow she had seen on that night? She quietly opened the door of the bathroom and peeked at Eloise, who was sitting in the dining room. She was lost in thought. She had yet to notice Roxanne opening the door. Now that Roxanne thought about it, Eloise didn't look really scared of Steve, nor does she give off signs of being in distress. Maybe she was overthinking things? Probably she was overthinking things. Okay, 6'5", or was it 5'6"? I can't remember. It's 192 centimeters. That is very tall, in my opinion, actually. Still, on the off chance that she was right, maybe she should take a closer look into it. She was about to return to Eloise, but something caught her eyes. The door in front of her, the door to Steve's room. What kind of room was it? Some people say you can learn quite a lot about someone's personality by a simple glance of the room. I counted the female figurines on my display, or rather in my display cases, by the way. And if I didn't miscount, it's 32 of them. Okay? 32 females, 1 trap, 1 alien, and a few males. Like 4 or 5 of them or something. Some of them are duplicates though, like Saber. I have like 3 Sabers or something. Is it clean? Is everything tidied up? Is there a lot of furniture? What color are his bed sheets? Her hand moved on its own. Soon the door in front of her was opening, slowly, delicately. The answer to her question was disappointing. It was empty, overly artificial, and seemed like it was literally unused. She then heard the creak of a chair and panicked. She quickly showed herself to Eloise and said, Sorry, it's that time of the month," before closing the door behind her. Only after did she notice she would have closed the door before showing herself, and not the other way around. She should have, rather. In order to quickly shift the mood, she blurted out, "What were we talking about again?" "Right, I remember. Boys, you must have one, don't you? A boy you like, I mean." "Me? No. She'd barely dodged a bullet. The phrase is funny because my room consists of my bed and a box next to me where I leave my phone and my Fumos, and a coat hanger and a Bible, and that's it. Boys literally live like that and think it's okay. And it fucking is, Blue, it fucking is. If I had to move, I would be able to fit all of my belongings in quite a small space. I mean, the biggest thing I would have to move would be my desk with my computer stuff. Everything else fits in a few crates at most. And I don't even need all of it, really. They talked about this and that, love, friendship, hardship. It was fun. She had forgotten for a time how pitiful she was, and yet she couldn't fully enjoy herself. It was nagging her. This tiny ball bouncing inside her stomach. Imagine having a trap figure. It's Nagisa from Assassination Classroom. Was her name Nagisa? I think it was. I'm pointing at when you can't see. Jesus Christ. Anxiety. Since she had that realization about Steve, she just couldn't concentrate on anything else. She was waiting for a good time to sneak a question about Steve into the conversation, but she didn't have the courage to do so. She didn't want to mess up this important moment that they were having together. In the end, she didn't say a thing. Instead, she thought, I'll simply observe more closely. "So, enjoyed yourself?" Steve asked the moment he returned home. His face seemed completely devoid of his usual cheerfulness. "We did indeed, right?" "Yes." She was glad. Eloise had enjoyed herself. If that really was the case, then maybe it was not such a bad idea to ask Steve if she could babysit her more often. She could get closer to Eloise while watching the situation from a better angle, but she didn't have the time to say a word that... Right, then I guess we won't take up any more of your time. He looked at Roxanne with eyes which seemed to say, "You're no longer needed." "Oh, sure," Roxanne said, visibly taken aback by those words. She thought he enjoyed her presence, but maybe she was full of herself for thinking that. Normally she would try to still smooth the situation and say what she meant to say, but his face didn't leave any place for interjections. She was ready to leave empty-handed if it wasn't for the little girl's peculiar comment. "Where's the gift?" "A gift?" Roxanne exclaimed happily despite the heavy mood, her hopes rising. "Could this be for her? A gift for me? Is this what? Why would you think that? Maybe it's a gift for Eloise, you know? Maybe he was interested in her after all and he simply couldn't express it. A gift? There's none of those in here. Roxanne, would you like to go to the theater with me tomorrow?" "Tomorrow? Of all times? Really? Tomorrow? Sorry, but I can't. I have a ton of things to do. Corrections and all," she said disappointingly. "But what about Saturday? I have plenty of time during the weekend." "Unfortunately, Saturday I have a date with a beautiful woman." "Oh, was he playing with her? What kind of torture was that?" I meant you, obviously. Oh, then sure, obviously. Hehehe. Good. That wasn't exactly what she was looking for, but she'll make do with what she has. Maybe the best way to know the truth is to learn about the man himself. And who knows? It could be fun. It could be fun. A date? As long as he's not the killer, that is. Playing with fire, woman. You're playing with fire. Sorry for the wait. Overtime is kind of the norm in my line of work, so... What are you talking about? I should be the one apologizing for forcing a meeting on you at such short notice. Well, drinking a beer at a bar, I don't call that a forced meeting. I call that a well-earned break. Don't worry about it. The waiter appeared, and so both Roxanne and Patrick ordered a drink. So what's this about? My daughter did something? No, nothing of the sort. It's just... What? Don't mind me. I know it's only the second time we've met, but I don't bite, I promise. Right. 2 days ago, as you probably know, I had to drive Eloise home because you and your wife went there to pick her up. You did? You didn't know? No, I thought my wife took care of it. At least that's what you told me. Really? That's weird. Why would she lie to you? Patrick looked at Roxanne bitterly. Why not enjoy our beer? It's been a long time since I enjoyed one. I'm not here for that. Eloise told me there was some tension at home. She's been deeply affected by it. I see. I guess that's to be expected. And it's because of your relationship with your wife. I know it's hard to hear this from a bystander, but you need to work this out. For Eloise's sake, at the very least, maybe taking a bit of time alone with her and gradually talk about it. Sorry, Roxanne, is it? I know you're trying to help, but we're past that point. A long time ago. That bad? Oh, you have no idea. But you do understand Eloise is suffering because of this, right? I know, but you know it's hard to think about everything and everyone when the world you've tried to build for so long is crumbling beneath your feet. What did she expect? To work things out? To change Eloise's life for the better? With what? Words? Talk is cheap. Roxanne knows this better than anyone else. But she had to try. She had to. She didn't have anyone to try for when it counted, so at least if Eloise could have it better, Roxanne would do anything for that. I see you're very troubled by this yourself. To go to such a length for your students. I'm very happy to see that Eloise has someone else besides my wife and I to take care of her. No, She fell silent for a time. Her powerlessness eating at her spirit. She had already reached the extent of what she had to say. She finally muttered, isn't there anything you could do to change things for the better? I thought about it quite a lot, actually, but I guess I would need to stop loving her. Or stop to care, at the very least. Find something to get my mind off her. Then do it, she said, it as if it was the most natural thing in the world. To that he answered with a serious tone. Then, would you help me find it? Me? She blushed. Ooh, he was looking at her in the eyes with no hint of falsehood, a strict, pure expression on his face. I'm kidding. You're easy to tease, you know that. Really? Am I? Talk is cheap. That night she relieved his tension, at least. Saturday. She knows what she's doing. She can change him. I'm sure she can. She changed Patrick before, right? Instead of a broken family, Eloise now had a broken mother or something, at least. Like, she fixed his dad, but not the mom. Maybe she should have an affair with both of them. I don't know. She had thought a lot about how to handle the situation. She soon came to the conclusion that this date was a good opportunity to know Steve a bit better. She didn't think Patrick was lying about him or anything, but he was clearly biased in his judgment. She wanted to learn both sides of the story before worrying for no reason. Hopefully she was wrong to suspect him. Hopefully this date will be fun. How long has it been since she'd last gone out on a date? With Patrick, it was always so secretive. More often than not, it was the hotel room, or else they had to be very mindful of where they were going. But today it was different. She felt free. She felt young again, though she was not old to begin with. It was the price to pay to be with an older married man. So she was kind of looking forward to it, her date with Steve. That's why it hurt her even more when she saw them arriving together. Right, them. Not just him, but them. Eloise, what a pleasant surprise, she said, very surprised indeed. I didn't know you were joining us. In any other circumstance, she would have been thrilled to see her, but she'd been anticipating this moment for the last 2 days, so it was kind of a downer. She wanted a moment to speak with him in private. She wanted to have an adult conversation, but now it was clearly out of the question. So, what do you guys want to go see? She shifted gears quickly. If not today, then another time. There's no reason why she shouldn't enjoy herself anyway. Let the girl choose, I guess. Good answer, Roxanne thought to herself. She had just gained a point. Not He had just gained a point, rather. Not that she had any point-based system in place to rate a man to begin with, but if she had one, he would have gained a point. I don't know, let me look a bit more. Roxanne was about to go on with the flow despite getting further and further away from what she had planned, but a diligent-looking little girl appeared out of nowhere to save the day. Emily, what are you doing here? I was going to see a movie. Wanna come with me? Sure. Hey. Steve didn't seem pleased by the sudden appearance. So, as you heard, I guess I'm going to see a movie with Emily. See you later. Wait! He attempted to stop Eloise, but Roxanne couldn't let that chance go to waste. Why don't you want to be alone with me? She grabbed his arm instinctively, trying to take his attention away. Soon she was relatively close to him, leaning on his arm, as would a girl on her boyfriend. Let them go. She'll have more fun with her friend. It was a bit embarrassing as she didn't know the man particularly well, but he didn't seem to care all that much, which helped her remain composed. So, what do we see? She stayed in that awkward position, faking that she meant to be this way since the beginning. She couldn't possibly shy away the second that Eloise disappeared. Way to give him the wrong idea. He might not be totally himself if he's overly conscious of me. Let's go see this, he said half-heartedly, pointing at one of the posters on the wall. Her eyes followed his finger with curiosity. What could he... She was wrong. He wasn't affected at all by her sudden behavior. Else there's no way he would have chosen... Mega Boy. Mega Boy. It was a poster of an ugly little boy in a superhero costume rendered in cheap 3D. It was painful to the eyes. No, it was Mega Boy. You want to see this? You're kidding, right? She had a tensed-up smile on her face. It was obviously a joke. She was preparing herself to laugh out loud no matter what his punchline was going to be. He didn't answer her, though. He started walking on his own, leaving her behind, dumbfounded. His smile disappeared the moment she witnessed the unthinkable. He bought 2 tickets. And then he said, rather matter-of-factly, by the way, we're going Dutch on this. You mean I got to actually pay to see this thing? Yeah, she isn't Mega Boy. She doesn't know. She doesn't know about the boy. It was a complete failure. She had tried to have a conversation with him before the start of the movie, but he reacted to nothing. Everything she said was followed by a grumble. Everything she asked was met with a, I don't know. And everything she did was coldly and outrightly ignored. He even fell asleep during the movie. A movie he had himself chosen. She had her answer. He was not interested in her, even as a friend. She was kind of hurt. It was a blow to her pride, that's for sure. She walked emptily to the exit, her shoulders slumped down, her fun date taken away from her. That's where they met with Eloise and Emily. They seemed happy. At least half the group had fun. You went to see that? You actually choose that? That was Eloise's reaction to Steve's odd choice. To be fair, it would be anyone's reaction. Yeah. Why? I don't know. Eloise was visibly angry at him, and it only worsened the moment Roxanne blurted out that he fell asleep during the movie. After staring annoyedly at Steve for a while, she turned towards Roxanne and said with a gentle smile, Roxanne, would you do us the honor of dining with us tonight? What a good girl! Roxanne was overwhelmed by Eloise's consideration. She didn't quite have the courage to keep on trying to hit it off with Steve, but the simple fact that it was Eloise who invited her was enough to make her forget how excruciating the last 2 hours had been. In the end, she accepted. The teacher's going to slander someone's husbando. There's nothing anyone could do about it. She had a plan. It came to her the moment they were at the supermarket buying ingredients for the upcoming feast. They passed by the beer section and bang! She had a revelation. And the dirt was gone. If he couldn't open up to her by simple means, then she only had to find a way around it. In other words, they had to get drunk. She was very confident in her alcohol tolerance. She always drank during courses at the university, and even more than that, teachers always had to get together during weekends. Do they? She couldn't count the number of times she was challenged to a drinking contest by one of her colleagues. They would always challenge her as a means to tease her for being the youngest of the bunch. In the end, she would easily beat men twice her size. Whoa, wait, how big is she? She would challenge Steve, and then hopefully he would open up to her. As long as he's still able to stand, it is. But first, dinner. Roxanne divided the jobs efficiently, giving the most dangerous ones to Steve and the ones requiring more patience to the 2 girls. At first she was afraid that Steve's rough appearance reflected the way he handled everything, but that clearly wasn't the case. He knew delicacy and was very meticulous when he was putting his mind to something. The meal she had tasted 2 days earlier should have been a good indicator of that, but at that time she had some doubts that he really was the one behind it. Those doubts were no longer present. She also noticed his eyes on her. He had not looked away from her ever since they started preparing the meal. Quite the opposite of the way he acted in the theater earlier. We know why. He was afraid of her poisoning them. Was he surprised by her talent as a cook? Or maybe by the way she handled the kids? But that was only natural. He was not the only one with marriageable qualities. She too would sell like a hot cake in a bright-selling auction. More like a Christmas cake in a few years, Miss Roxanne. But I love Christmas cakes, holy shit. Dear God, what kind of disturbing thoughts am I having? I think that several times a day, actually. The meal was a success. Everyone was satisfied, sitting calmly and eating after their after-meal ice cream. It was time to challenge Steve to a game. She asked everyone if they wanted to play with her, taking the playing cards out of her purse. The two girls agreed quite easily, but Steve on the other hand simply said, no. Gah. He hadn't smiled all day. He was the complete opposite of how he usually acts around her. Was he hiding something after all, or was he simply under the weather? Don't be like that. For us, it will be a drinking game. And what exactly are we going to play? Mentioning alcohol seems to have sparked his interest. Good. They were more alike than she first thought. You seem confident. I like that, but I'd let you know that I'm very good at handling my drinks. And my decks. Card games. That's cute. He said with a little smile on his lips. You didn't really just say that, did you? He'll pay for this. Rox is a pervert? I don't know. Is she a pervert or is she just very dense in a weird way? At some point, the two girls decided to go watch a movie in the living room. Why though? Roxanne didn't know. She was too engrossed in the poker game her and Steve were playing. She had long since lost count of how many beers she had. Instead, she dedicated every ounce of focus still left into her into beating Steve, which was quite difficult. She had underestimated her enemy by letting him choose the next game, poker. She should have known he would be good at it with that indifferent mug of his. Still, even though she was losing 70% of the time, she knew he was approaching his limit. He had long since stopped talking and, most of all, stopped moving. I don't believe your poker face must have been loose by now. Just give up. Oh, in her head it sounded a lot more fluid. This wasn't good. Her mind was drifting further and further away from what was in front of her. She had a hard time focusing on the cards in her hands. It was an ace or a 4? Was it her turn? He then put chips in front of him, but how many? If the stupid room could stop turning for a second, then maybe she could close her eyes. Bump. She understood her hand had dropped to the table, but she didn't care. The sound it made was unusually loud, but she felt nothing. No, that was wrong. In fact, she felt comfortable for a time. But even with her eyes closed, the room didn't stop turning. Or maybe she was turning? As would an endlessly dark and hypnotizing spiral? She had to open her eyes back, and soon the intensity was only increasing. Too hard. She has to rely on him after all. I think I'm gonna puke. Those were the only words that came to her mind, though she was probably exaggerating. Probably. But she pleaded for help nonetheless. At least she wanted to go back to her bed badly. And she felt a funny sensation. She mumbled something and then... Your purse won't run away. Don't worry. Her eyes opened barely. Her head was killing her. Someone said something to her. Something about her purse? Took it away? She didn't want that, but why? She can't recall. She was lying on something soft, something comfortable. A bed? Steve then said something she couldn't quite understand. Is it just me? Or you're really stupid? Huh? She lifted her head despite disturbing her comfort. She was definitely in a bed. She could still hear the television running on the other side of the wall. She had not slept for long, right? Then Steve popped into her field of vision. He was crouching near the door. Something in the depth of her gut was trying to say something to her. She had to interrupt him, take his attention away. It was imperative that she did so. Steve? He didn't answer. She got up slowly and decided to walk sneakily towards him. His back was defenseless. She wanted to tease him for some reason, jump on him and scare him. That's what you get for ignoring me. What are you doing? He turned around so quickly she hadn't the time to understand what just took place. She felt pain for less than a second and then... nothing. For real? That's so cute. Right? She's trying so much to be like her mother. Sometimes it's scary. One night I came home really late, climbed the stairs trying hard not to fall asleep, and there she was, inside the bathroom, trying on a dress 3 times her size at 2 a.m. in the morning. Turns out she was doing her own little fashion show while her mummy was asleep. Really? Why so late? Because it was a dress my wife, Claire, was working on. Oh, I see. I guess she would be mad at her for doing that. You would think that, but it's actually the opposite. The last time Eloise did this, Claire gave the dress to her. What? But weren't you the one who told me it could take a month just to perfect one dress? Several, actually. Guess that's why Eloise was hiding. She didn't want to take away months of labor just for an hour of play. Your wife is something else. Yeah, she is. He was looking a bit dejected now that the conversation had turned to his wife. They were pillow talking in a hotel room as they usually do. They had around an hour in front of them still. You never did tell me the reason behind your awkward relationship with your wife. I never wanted to. And now? He fell silent. Roxanne thought he would brush off the subject as he did so many times in the past, but that wasn't it. He was collecting his thoughts. She resents me. For a long time she's been resenting me. We just can't talk anymore. Every time we do, she tries to hurt me, to make me feel like shit. And because of this, I resent her too. What did you do? Nothing. Patrick? It's true, I did nothing. It's all because of her brother. Her brother? What does he have to do in all this? Roxanne was dubious. The core of a relationship is the 2 people constituting it, not the bystanders surrounding them. She thinks I'm the reason behind his change, that I'm the reason why he left, but that's not the case. He's the only one responsible for his own cowardliness. He was shaking, he was frowning, his breathing was uneven. This was something he had yet to make peace with. You know, at first that kid looked up to me. He followed me everywhere, and I tried to have a good relationship with him. But I couldn't buy his act, trying to look pitiful as if he was always the victim. He was always there, taking Claire's time as if she was his mother or something. Didn't he understand we were trying to have a life together? Click, click. He was playing with his lighter as he always did when he was stressed out. And then one day he just left. I was happy about it, I won't lie. Thought he was a thorn in our side and that the moment he was out of the picture everything would be better. But it wasn't. As the years passed, she became cold and resentful. She couldn't even produce art anymore. She had lost her drive. She thought she had failed him for some stupid reason. The woman I loved was broken. All of this because of him. Couldn't you just make peace with him? At first I tried, but he hates my guts. I hate his too. In the end I always wished I could just beat his ass into submission. But that man is... Roxanne didn't know what to say. She was clearly striking a nerve. She could only wait until her feelings settled somehow. You know why it's so hard for me? Because I still have hopes. Because of that little thing. Like giving away the dress she'd spent 3 months working on for absolutely no other reason than seeing her daughter smile. Her core is still there, but he took most of it away from her. Before, she was a beautiful woman. Her passions and beliefs were unmatched. She had this peculiar view of life as if she could see further away than anybody could. But he destroyed her beliefs. He started laughing dryly. How ironic, really. He destroyed the woman he loves the most in this world. It looks like we're getting a very bittersweet ending again here. It hurts. Her head hurts, her side hurts, her mouth hurts, her throat hurts, her neck hurts. It hurts so goddamn much. Yet she can't open her eyes. She wants to sleep through the pain, yet she can't. She needs water, she needs to go to the bathroom, she needs a bed. This is how I felt after chapter 3 in Limbus. A bed? Where is she? Consciousness starts to take over. Pain doesn't subdue though. It only worsens. Soon her throat burns so much that she wishes she was dead. Her eyes finally open as she understands the emergency of her situation. It's dark, completely dark. She lifts her head and the whole right side of her face is sore. She was sleeping on hard ground, but which ground? She then noticed that the pain coming from her head isn't simply a product of a hangover. She reaches to her forehead. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts! She badly wanted to puke. The hangover, the bruise on her head, her whole right side numb from sleeping on the floor, her neck which evidently was strangled with great force, the lack of sleep. To say she was feeling like shit would clearly be an understatement right now. It took her 5 minutes of great effort to accommodate to the pain. Only then did she start to assess the situation. There was little to no light sipping inside the room. Her eyes were adapting to the darkness still, which meant there had to be a source of light somewhere. By straining her eyes, she was finally able to make out a metallic, heavy-looking door in this cold, dark room. It's where the light is coming from, she thought. She walked to it and tried to open it, but to no avail. Shit. Her heartbeat was racing. She didn't feel good. Where was she? What was she doing here? Her breathing was uneven. She was panicking. She turned around and scanned her surroundings, thinking there might be something she'd missed. The room was almost completely empty. There were 2 or 3 things lying around on the floor. She made a beeline to the first thing in her line of sight. She found 2 bottles of water, one next to the other. She opened one on the spot and started gulping it. She only stopped herself after drinking half of it. She wanted to drink more, but an alarm was echoing inside her head. If she was trapped in here, those 2 bottles were only source of water within arm's reach. She took both bottles in her hands and walked to the other object on the floor. That one, though, was everything but helpful. An empty bucket. You can wear it as a hat. Her mind was racing. This unbelievable idea creeping in the back of her mind was no longer far-fetched anymore. She had been kidnapped. That was the only logical assumption she could make. But by who and why? And what was she doing before ending up here anyway? She was with Eloise and Emily and Steve. They had eaten together, then she drank with Steve, then... She remembered. A flash. That night he turned towards her and hit her. It all happened so fast, she had a hard time thinking it true, but it was. So he was the one behind it? Had Steve kidnapped her? But why? This man is dangerous. Isn't it what she gathered from her conversations with Patrick? Wasn't she already kind of suspecting him, though she had no evidence to back it up? It meant that Patrick was right after all, and it meant that Steve is the one behind Patrick's death? She was gasping for air. Reality was settling in. Her whole body was shaking. She dropped on the floor, trying really hard not to burst out crying. She tried to find reasons, convenient reasons for what's happening to her right now, but the truth of the matter was that she was trapped in a dark, creepy room, and she was knocked out by a man the night prior, a supposedly dangerous man. She even has marks of strangulation on around her neck. She didn't want to notice them, but she can feel them all too well. Do you really feel? I mean, it must hurt, right, when someone strangles you? I've never been strangled before. I've never been strangled before. What had happened while she was asleep? Why is it happening to her? How much time had passed? She tried to keep track of it, but it was especially hard in an enclosed dark space. He had taken everything away from her. Nothing was in her pocket and her purse was not with her, so she could only rely on her own judgment to determine what time it was. 30 was the number of hours she thought had elapsed since she woke up the first time in here. How would you even know? How would you know how much time had passed? I mean, my sense of time is pretty good, but I assume that's because of like subconscious signals. Like what I'm doing at the time, what distance I was walking, and what I usually walk in that amount of time and stuff, or the light outside and stuff. Like I assume a sense of time is always a summarization of many things that you just subconsciously take in. You can't just lie in your bed, or well, you can lie in your bed and read and have a sense of time because you know how much you read and how long it takes you to read X amount of pages or something. But if you just lie in your bed and you do nothing, make it complete darkness as well, your sense of time is like completely out the window, isn't it? A biological clock? I call bullshit on that one. The biological clock doesn't properly work without the sun, does it? What about people trapped in a bunker? How long does it take for the biological clock to go whack, or is it gone immediately? At first she had tried screaming, banging on the walls and tugging on the door's handle, but she soon came to the conclusion that this place was not anywhere near a civilized area. Probably a creepy forest or an abandoned farm or something. She then scrutinized every inch of the room to make sure that she hadn't missed a thing. She hadn't. Some people have a decent sense of time. I will inevitably wake up before my alarm goes off. Even just lying there, you can sense it. I always wake up like 5 to 10 minutes before my alarm goes off, and it pisses me off. Maybe it's different for me because I get up on a different time every single day due to like working different shifts. I mean, the days where I bring Babby to kindergarten are my most consistent days since I have to get up at like 7 in the morning. Other than that, I might have to go up at like 5. I might have to get up at like 12 in like midday, basically, if I can sleep in, if I work late. It's very different. So maybe just my sense of time is out of whack. But if I'm doing something like at work, I can do work without even looking at my smartphone because I'm not wearing a watch at work. I would just scratch it all over the place. And I can tell that, okay, 1 hour has passed by now, and usually I'm mostly right. An old research shown people who don't see sun or time start sleeping for 12 hours and working for 24. That's interesting, isn't it? Working, like, I assume you mean staying awake for 24. Sleeping for 12 hours and working for 24. It's like almost as if our entire biorhythm is shaped differently to how our body would be able to work, actually. Also makes you think that, imagine if you trap people. Imagine if you trap people underground and you just make them think that 24 hours pass, but it's actually 36 hours passing every time, right? Because you stretch, or rather you squish the amount of time down for them, or you stretch it out. You make the clocks work differently, basically, and hope that none of them count to 60, or if they count to 60, they just would gaslight themselves into thinking that they counted wrong, or don't have the proper timing for it anymore. And you could get so much more work out of them. Could you actually? That is more work, right? 2/3 out of a day? That's like 12/24. That's like sleeping for 8 and working for 16. Well, yeah, I don't know. Is there use to that? I'm not entirely sure. She then scrutinized every inch of the room to make sure that she hadn't missed anything. She hadn't. Frustrated and with no option left at her disposal, she sat on the floor and waited. She decided she would only take a small sip of water every hour, her idea of an hour anyway, in an attempt to regulate her water supply. She also took the time to examine her body, but except for the bruise on her forehead and the marks on her neck, everything else was pretty much fine. She didn't seem to have been raped, though she could be completely sure. What? Okay, I'm no woman, alright? But I don't know, wouldn't you notice if you were taken without your consent or something? For a woman, I'm sure she would notice. As a man, I'm not entirely sure if you would. It doesn't quite work to sleep with a man who's sleeping, basically. Like, the body just doesn't work like that, I assume. Like, I don't know, does it? Very, very touchy subject here. For a time she'd cry, but seeing how exhausting that was, she then turned to sleep. If you're already drunk and we're drugged, yeah, but wouldn't you be able to tell afterwards? I'm no woman, and you don't need to disclose anything, okay? But wouldn't you be able to tell that something happened with your body in that time? I assume you would. I guess, depending on how rough they would have to be for it. She would sleep often, but not for long. Maybe 2 to 3 hours at a time, half sleeping. Her body always in survival mode. Yeah. She needs to get into survival mode to deal with Minecraft Steve. She was hungry, and most of all, she was cold. The efforts she put into trying to keep her energy up were being wasted by trying to keep her body warm. She hadn't given up yet, though it was clear that she would probably die. Every scenario she'd imagined was extremely bad. She couldn't think of a way where the situation could actually be a simple misunderstanding, or that it wasn't, yet Steve let her live in the end. She was scared, incredibly so, thinking that maybe this time, when she closed her eyes to fall asleep, she might never open it back up again. Bang! And the dirt is gone again. Reminder, the text on my second screen is small, that the pineal gland, the one responsible for circadian rhythms, is the literal third eye of the body. It's made of the same tissue eyes are. I didn't need to know this. Very disgusting little tidbit of knowledge, Abarosuko. Thank you very much. What? If you trap people underground, you can squeeze more work from them. Yeah, I mean, we did that in the past, didn't we? Just get dwarves. Just get some dwarves and all of the mining in the world should be no problem anymore. Rape and head sex have some overlap in the difficulty of being able to distinguish. Yeah, hence why I think it's a very difficult subject to talk about here as well. A loud noise reverberated across the room. Roxanne's eyes snapped open, her light slump disrupted in the most violent way possible. She agitatedly turned in the direction of the sound and instantly locked eyes with Steve. Her heart, which was already banging in her chest like an old washing machine, leapt out of her mouth. Adrenaline pushed her up to her feet, but unfortunately for her, she was already a captive of lightheadedness. She fell on her butt pitiably. At least this time it's not her butts. Soon she found herself with her back against the wall, and she instinctively crawled her way back the furthest away from him. You'd think she would have taken off the shoes, you know, when she was trapped in here, but maybe she was just really cold, and that's why she didn't, because these are some very high heels. Holy shit, she's slaying. He looked at her with an immeasurably cold gaze. There were no emotions on his visage. He closed the door behind him slowly, almost teasingly, as if to claim that there's no way out of this for her. He was going to kill her. He was going to kill her. She had to do something. She needed to plead for her life or cry or fight, anything, even if she knew how useless that was. What do you want from me? Why are you doing this? Please don't hurt me. She cried everything on top of her head. She was shaking like a leaf. She was impressed that she could even mutter a word in such a situation. But this courage of hers didn't change anything. He discarded her every question, showed no fragments of pity, and said blankly, I know you were fooling around with Patrick. He knows? So that's why. He did all this because she had an illicit relationship with the husband of his sister? But how does he know? Wait, now that she thinks about it, before he hit her, he was looking at something coming from the floor. No, from a purse. She remembers. He took a purse and then, don't tell me, the lighter? She broke eye contact with him, ashamed. What's the plot so far? The guy is a psycho? No, not necessarily. He's definitely a little bit weird, okay? But he's actually very kind-hearted. We've seen that from his perspective last time. The plot so far is, how did the parents die? Who was at fault? And will they find out? Or will everything just hit the fan in a spectacular manner? Like, in a shit manner, basically. She broke eye contact with him, ashamed. Her heart ached. She didn't want to die. She never thought this would cost her her life. She wanted to cry. She wanted to apologize to that little girl, Eloise, for betraying her trust, for breaking a promise. Everything was not alright. He would kill her like he did Patrick. He would. Tell me, the man said with a very crude tone. Are you the one who killed them? What? And that's how they come to the conclusion that obviously the mum must have murder-suicided. And he's not able to tell Eloise because that would break her little fragile heart and mind. So he rather gets killed himself. What a man! He's so perfect. Oh, I would love to both be him and be with him. She couldn't understand a single thing. This conversation that just took place, or more like this one-sided interrogation, was clearly one beyond her own understanding of the situation. She didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle, and Steve had no intention of sharing it with her. After questioning her for about half an hour, he just fell silent, thoughtful. He hadn't touched her, he wasn't aggressive, he was acting as though this situation was normal. It creeped her out, yet she didn't want to anger him, so she simply answered his questions truthfully. In the end, he said, "You're free to go," and started walking away. Just like that. Wait, what's this all about? Why did you lock me in here? He didn't answer her. He kept on walking, looking as though he just now learned of his own mortality. Answer me! She reflexively touched his shoulder, but then remembered that night he'd hit her, and immediately backed away in fear. He didn't do a thing. He didn't react at all. He simply stopped, looking in front of him with an absolute lack of emotions. Your handbag is in the other room, he finally said, distantly. I won't tell you what to do. You do whatever you want. After all, you have every right to. But I'll tell you this, though. There's a little girl who has no one left in this world. I'd literally give my life to protect her. And unless you can say the same, you should think twice before going to the police. Else, my life might not be the only one you destroy by doing this. Roxanne didn't understand. Since he appeared, she became even more clueless than she already was. If he was so sure she would go to the police, then why wasn't he killing her? If he wanted to protect the life he so cherished with Eloise, what was stopping him? He didn't wait for her answer. He probably didn't think she had one to begin with. He took a step forward and walked away silently, as though he was better than her. She couldn't stand it. I'll say it. I can protect her, and I will. You say you would give your life for her, but what are you doing now? Would Eloise be happy with this? You've taken me prisoner. You've put both your life and hers in jeopardy. And for what? Your dead sister? Doesn't that mean that you love her more than you love Eloise? You're a ticking time bomb, Steve, and I won't leave her alone with someone as dangerous as you. If there's someone who can truly protect her, it's me. She switched gears from I can fix him to I can fix her. I don't know if you noticed. She then realized what she'd just done. She was so furious being trapped in here, forced to listen to his senseless logic. In the heat of the moment, she said what she really felt in the depths of her heart. She was proud of that. The thing is, she's still a long way from safety, and now she just proclaimed that she would indeed go to the police. If he was testing her, she would have failed miserably. He looked at her with defiant eyes with unshakable, unmatchable determination, and said, "Then prove it." This time he left without looking back. How ridiculous. This whole situation was outrageously ridiculous. That thing she was trapped in, some sort of a bunker she thinks, was not in the depth of a forest like all the scenarios she'd produced in her mind. In fact, it was awfully close to Steve's home. Right in the middle of town, on a random private property. Did Steve own the place? Probably not. Not that it really mattered anyway. She was walking with no clear aim in mind. She had long since passed the point of mere exhaustion. Her mind was hardly working as she wanted it to. Feelings were welling up inside of her. Mixed feelings. He had let her live. That was a fact. She couldn't completely hate him because of this, and that pissed her off so goddamn much. She knew what she had to do. Even if she lacked the resolve, her body was moving on its own. She was slowly, diligently, making her way towards the police station. She had to protect Eloise. She had to. Even if his reasons were pure, even if Roxanne wasn't completely in the right, even if it would make Eloise cry. What's telling her he won't do it again? What's telling her it won't be Eloise next time? He's too dangerous. Dangerously based, that is. He needed to pay for what he had done to her. Those hours of pure nightmare. He will be arrested, he will do his time, and hopefully he will learn from it. She will take care of Eloise. If he can do it, then she will. What makes her think that she's gonna be allowed to take care of her? Oh, I fucked her dad. Can I take care of her, please? What? Oh, I was her teacher a few years ago. Can I take care of her, please? What? Walking was really hard for her. She would have used a cell phone if it wasn't for the battery being completely drained out. Even worse, she knew she looked like a mess, but that was not something she should be worrying about right now, right? She wanted to ask for help from a passerby, but the moment she made eye contact with any of them, they instantly looked away. Don't think about it, don't think about it. She pushed the door to the police station with the last of her strength. At last. It was the first time she ever entered one of those. She didn't feel like she belonged here. She looked around, oblivious. There was some kind of a reception desk to her right. It was probably where she had to go in order to explain her case. She knew that much, yet why? She can't lift her feet. She can't take a single step forward. Is she that exhausted? Yes, obviously, but no. That's clearly not it. Something even more frustrating than that. She can't move because she's wavering. Because she's confused. Because she's having cold feet. I would warm them up. Should she really be doing this? She doesn't know the whole truth. Maybe he has a good reason for doing it. He'd let her live. He was searching for the killer. He was taking care of Eloise. Was he really that bad of a person? She looked towards the reception desk as if searching for an answer. Her eyes met those of the receptionist. Did she come here for nothing after all? Was her resolve that weak? Why did she feel indebted to him, even though he was the one behind her pain? It's because she's very clearly a very dumb person. Madam, is there something wrong? The receptionist asked her from afar, but she wasn't in the state of mind to realize that the world was still spinning around her. Why did he let her live? She just couldn't understand. Did he know she would have never had the courage to come forward? Impossible. He would never bet his life on such a flawed logic. Then why? A flash. His last words came to her mind. Then prove it. What, was that it? She looked back at the receptionist. He was still looking at her, dubious. He probably wasn't sure if she was a victim of a kidnapping or simply a crazy prostitute. Or maybe both. She walked to him decisively. Provoking her, pushing this difficult responsibility onto her, she couldn't help herself but hate him for what he's done. And she couldn't help herself but hate herself for what she was about to do. That's what you want, isn't it? Then I'll give it to you. She stopped in front of the desk. Her eyes were stern, resolute. The man in front of her muttered, "What can I do for you?" with clear uneasiness. "I want to report a crime." She was about to say it. She was about to. Crime, it's easy, isn't it? So why? People, cops, 5, maybe 6, were walking towards the exit with haste in their pace. She was caught off guard by their sudden behavior. She unconsciously heard parts of their conversation. Gunshots, a couple of blocks from here, apartment, 3rd floor. It can't be. No, it can't be. There's no way. Yet. Madam, you were about to report a crime? Hey, wait! She started running. There's just no way. I want to report a cringe. That's right. The ending, the conclusion, I guess. We're getting it now. I wonder if there would have been different endings depending on whether you watch both viewpoints or not. I assume not. That wouldn't make much sense. It's like a kinetic novel. Like the only choice was basically a non-choice. It was just, what do you want to see first? A spell? Yes, a spell. A very strong, powerful spell. Stop making fun of me. Steve pouted, thinking his sister was playing around with him. I'm not joking. It's really strong and it does work. Do you not want to know about it? I do. He wanted to know despite his suspicions. His curiosity won over his judgment. Then you must promise me you will only use it when you have a full grasp of what you want. This wish that you have must not be ambiguous or misdirected. You see, Steve, knowledge is everything. Your perception of the world changes alongside what you know. And if that knowledge is based on misrepresented facts, then your perception of the world will also be based on wrong presentations. Do you understand? I do, I promise. He wasn't totally sure of what she meant, but he wanted to know the spell, so he told her what you wanted to hear. Alright, think about this wish that you have of being strong. Imagine it. Strong, strength. The image slowly emerged in his mind. Cold, emotionless, calculative. You have it? Good. Then now all you have to do is believe in it. Believe that you are strong. As long as you believe it strongly enough, others will soon believe it too. This, Steve, is the truth of this world. Believe it? That doesn't make any sense. This isn't even a spell. It's only make-believe. Yes, it is a spell. If you believe in it, then it is. The truth is made out of belief, more often than not, intangible facts. Something false doesn't necessarily mean that it isn't the truth. As long as it is believed as such, even the earth can be flat. Do you follow me? What does she mean? Of course the earth is flat. I think I understand, but it's still only fake. Who said that fake couldn't be stronger than the real deal? That's why you must be careful, Steve. Your reality is based on what you believe. You can believe something that is false if you want, but never believe in something that is wrong, else you will be wrong all your life. Wrong. And Steve, you might not believe me. You might even think that your current you is girly or weak, but I assure you that you are strong. You're an optimistic crybaby who's too pure to be corrupted by the ugliness of this world, but you're also someone who can see past evil. Nothing is a blank slate, and there are far more than only two sides to everything. You know this, don't you? I've seen it with my own eyes. You accept everything upon yourself, knowing that malice is only another facet that reality had decided to take. So Steve, be proud of who you are, right? He was weak, far weaker than what his sister was making him out to be. He could not live like this anymore. Boys his age were beating him, girls were laughing at him. He could not understand what she was trying to say, and he probably didn't want to. In the end, he arrived at his own conclusion. She's wrong, I'll be strong. I'll believe in the me that can protect her. Steve? Answer me, Steve. Please. It's literally, without love it cannot be seen. Once more, isn't it? I believe 2 inches is average. I choose to believe that as well. Oh god. Lambda Delta's playing a game about truths. Once more, yes. They all seem to be about truth and bending the truth and lying to little children to make them feel better. It's always at the heart of these stories. And God knows I've lied to Babby to make her feel better about herself and the world as well already. It's happening very early that you're telling white lies, or that you're like lying to them in a weird way, claiming that you can do magic or something, or that they too can do magic tricks if they want to. It's all because of children. It's all because of their pure innocence, their like glowing eyes, their radiating love, and it's just, I don't know, maybe you need to be in a spot where you can see a child like that, where you can bask in the glory that is a happy child when you perform a magic trick for them, or tell them that unicorns are real or whatever. And obviously I actually did tell her that unicorns aren't real. But yeah, like, without love it cannot be seen, and always go for the trick ending. Steve, please answer me. I'm sorry. She was gripping at his shirt, pulling weakly. He was still on one knee, barely grasping at his consciousness. The only thing keeping him awake were the excruciating, burning-like sensations around his abdomen and the little girl's pleats. She was crying uncontrollably. She was gasping for air. She was in visible pain still. She was trying to muster all the courage she could in order to keep her feelings together. I didn't want to hurt you. I'm so sorry. But it's alright now, right? I don't mind. You must have had your reasons, right? I didn't mean to kill you, Baka. What was she babbling about? I know you. You're not like this. You don't want anyone to be in pain. You want what's best for me, right? What does she know? More than anyone, I deserve this. I don't believe you did it. And even if it did, I don't care anymore. See? So please, don't die. You're my only family left. She's coping very hard right now. Family? Someone as irresponsible as me shouldn't be allowed to have such a thing. Don't leave me alone. That's an order. Resist. Should be better off without you. You wanted to be strong, right? Then now is the time. This is your definition of strength, is it not? I don't want that. She's giving up. Good. She should forget about me. I only brought her pain anyway. And a new smartphone. And a new car. And lots of other new things. And I almost had it too. This thing they call happiness. If only I was... So, what are you doing, you fool? You're already committed to this. Are you that desperate? Are you that selfish? Don't try to move. Don't try to talk. Everything will be over soon. Steve, did you say something? Eloise, I'm so sorry. Weak. I'm so weak. I love the little zoom out it does as well. Like, it really adds to the scene. Okay, don't apologize. Don't give up. Don't leave me alone. I love you, Steve! A crybaby who's too pure to be corrupted by the ugliness of this world. Someone who can see past evil. Was that it, sis? Was this the strength you were talking about? Being able to forgive the one you proclaimed he killed your parents? Saying immature things like you know that person even though you know nothing about him? Saying that he's your family of all things? Even going as far as to say that you love him? If that is what it means to be strong, if that's what it means to believe, then I want to believe. He was shaking incredibly so. He could only look down. His throat was in pain. He was trying to say something, anything. How pathetic. Steve, does it really hurt that much? Is that why you're crying? I need to call an ambulance. She didn't yet? Jesus Christ. How pathetic. To think he once was embarrassed by this. To think he had kept it all in. He had not cried for his mother, not for his father, even for his sister. He thought this was what it meant to be strong. He believed it so, but he was wrong. All his life he was wrong. He didn't want her to leave him. He was trying to tell her about his feelings, but it was too painful. Crying was painful. To think she could fight this pain. So that's what it means to be strong? He was gritting his teeth in disappointment. He wanted to tell her. But what's this? Uwu. A hand on his head. Whose hand? Hers. But why? It was light, delicately so. As if this girl was floating in the sky, the world below her ready for the taking. A beautiful, bright world. He felt definitely relieved about this, though he didn't know why. This is the exact opposite of how she felt when he put the hand on her head the first time. The man with too much on his shoulders and so on, the dark world she felt inside of him. His hand was heavy, almost like a burden and stuff. Very nice throwback to the beginning of the novel. It didn't move. She didn't try to pet him, she didn't try to console him, didn't even smile for that matter. She simply looked at him for a time, expressionless. Truthfully. Then, after a time, she said something unexpected. I didn't know you were such a crybaby. Did he just recover or something? I guess I am. Lucky, I gotta see a new expression. He couldn't help himself but smile. When was the last time he was told he was a crybaby? At that time it was bitter, but now it's sweet. So sweet. Thank you, Eloise. For what? For believing in me and for giving me the will to live. He wanted to say those words, though he knew how ironic they were. So it means you didn't do it, right? Of course not. Then why? Why did you say such a thing? Why did you make me shoot yourself, which will have scarred this little person for life as well, you know? Sorry, your uncle is a bit silly. Again, he had tried to put everything on his shoulders, as if it could ever change what had already been done. His bad habit, his selfish definition of strength had almost caused him to lose someone he loved. Again. And Roxanne? She's alive. At least she should be. Then that means that I shot you for no reason? You didn't do anything wrong. This time he was the one to put his hand on her head. She had done nothing wrong. If anything, she had woken him up. He finally understood what his sister had tried to teach him. I am a criminal. I will have to go to the police. My life is so over. What a funny little girl. By the way, Eloise. What? I love you too, but only as your uncle. Anyway, you already have Nicholas for it, right? What weird thing to go here, okay? I was talking in the sense of a family. I don't think of you that way at all. How do you know about Nicholas anyway? Your journal. You told me you thought it was fiction. I lied. He tried to smile again, but he couldn't hide his pain. No matter how hard he tried to make it feel like everything was alright, there was still a limit to how long he could maintain this act. Steve? Oh, we need to call an ambulance, and quick! Yeah, I guess you're right. How weird. He was ready to die just a couple of minutes ago, and now he was thinking of his future with Eloise. He thought about how, if he survives this, he would have to think of a good reason for the gunshot wound, but saying it's an accidental shot could still make him lose Eloise's custody. He already looked unreliable, so it probably wouldn't take much for him to lose it. Eloise took out a cell phone from her pocket. His cell phone? This is my cell phone? Yeah, sorry I took it. Why do you have it on you? Because he told me to keep it until he... Steve could see in her eyes that she'd realized her mistake. So it really came down to this. At that time, the screech of tires could be heard right in front of the building. 2. No 3 vehicles just parked in front of the apartment. Eloise. He put his hand on hers. There's no time for an ambulance. But what are we supposed to do? She was scared. She was panicking. To think he would have to see those expressions again on her face so soon. Unforgivable. It's not fair, Eloise. He reached for what was lying on the floor right beside her. I thought we told each other no more violence, but you didn't keep that promise, did you? Huh? I guess I can't keep mine either. He took the handgun in his hands, looked inside the chamber, then ejected the magazine to inspect it. Wait, what are you planning to do? His mind was racing. At worst, he just had a couple of minutes to live, at best a couple of hours. Well, not at this rate anyway. He needed to stop the blood loss, and fast. There were 3 cars, which meant Mark, his personal bodyguard, and 8 more men. Steve knew how well they operated, and Mark was always there for the party, almost taking upon himself to see everything unfold with his own eyes, even though he never got his own hands dirty. The apartment is on the 3rd floor. There's an emergency exit at the back, the main hall at the front, and one of the windows is facing the north side of the building. You should assume that all 3 exits are now sealed. Mark, his bodyguard, and maybe another man are probably watching the front. 2 men for the emergency exit, 1 man for the side of the building. The 4 left should be making their way to Steve and Eloise's apartment right about now. Eloise, go to my room where you found my cell phone. In the backpack, you should find dark rectangular metallic objects like this one. Shows the magazine to Eloise. Bring them to me, now. Alright, she said flustered. And throw me that towel over there, please. Sure. She gave him the towel, then ran to Steve's room. This should do the job for now. He tied the towel around his abdomen tightly in order to limit the blood loss. It was more painful than he imagined it would be. Then, does it mean... Soon Eloise returned. Here. Thanks. Now. Slowly, painfully, he got up to his feet. Steve, you shouldn't move. He checked how his body was responding. His hands, his hips, his legs, his feet. This was no good. He had a hard time with his left hip. This was no good at all. He was alone, all alone against 10 men. He had a kid and a cat to protect. He was wounded. And worst of all, he was on a timer. He needed to take care of this before his body shut down. He might have had faith in his ability, but almost all the men who were trying to kill him tonight had the same faith in theirs. He was not special. He was in a situation where death was inevitable, for him and for those he loved. He should try to escape. He should try to flee. But why was he not moving? Why was he so sure of himself? He had no fear. He was standing tall, ready to face a situation he has clearly no chance of winning. Steve, why are you smiling? The little girl asked with clear panic in her voice. Him? Smiling? He reached for his lips, and yes, she was right. He was smiling. Like an idiot, he was smiling. Pardon me, I hit my desk. Let me drink something real quick, actually. When Roxanne shows up, you just know it's going to be Kino overload. I assume Roxanne and the police are gonna show up together and she's gonna give him an alibi or something. Didn't he already come to the conclusion that running was no good? They would pursue them no matter where they went, and most importantly, Eloise had a life here. Eloise, the phone. He extended his hand towards and she shyly, weakly gave him his phone back. Now, Eloise. He was starting to hear hasty footsteps in the corridor leading to their apartment. Take the cat with you and go hide inside my room. Stay as low as you can on the ground and don't move until I tell you to, understand? But Steve, I can't just... Eloise! Do as I say. Your uncle is really mad right now. He shouted angrily, yet he quickly added in a low voice. Mad to have his precious time with his lovely niece be interrupted like this. He was facing the front door. She was behind him, silent. He didn't want to look her way, fearing his resolve would waver. What are you going to do? He had no real answer for her. He didn't want to lie, yet the truth didn't seem to matter anymore. No. It's not that it doesn't matter, it's that it won't change a thing. In the end, he settled for an answer. Kill bad guys. To think this would actually be true this time. Then make sure you come back for me, alright? Normally, he wouldn't say a thing. Normally, he would brush it off completely. He has to, but something inside of him was different. Something strong, something intangible. He finally believed. He turned his head towards her effortlessly, smiled truthfully, and said without a hint of falsehood, definitely. Her eyes were soon filled with tears. Her hands were forming little fists. She was trembling. Her breaths were uneven. She had something to say, it was obvious, but instead she took off towards his room, her cat in her hands, crying. Footsteps finally settled near the front door. It was the quiet before the storm. He was grateful. Grateful to Eloise for giving him all those irreplaceable emotions. Grateful to his sister for giving him all those invaluable lessons. Grateful to life itself for giving him a good reason to fight. He never wanted to be wrong again in his life. For that, he would show the world what strength really means. Let the party begin, then. She was shaking like a leaf. The cat beside her was restless. Eloise had to hide underneath Steve's bed in order to stay next to her. But even then, Billow couldn't keep her instincts in check. She had scratched Eloise and hid even further in the corner of the room. But Eloise didn't feel a thing. She was scared. She had a hard time to even think straight. She didn't want to leave Steve alone, but she knew fully well how useless she was. The only thing she could do now was to use the trick he taught her. She was believing. She had to. In the end, she couldn't imagine someone stronger than him, so she believed, and rightly so. Her hand then touched a round metallic object. Isn't this Roxanne's lipstick? Six shots. He had shot 14 inches to the left and the right of the door in quick succession. The walls were thin and the shadows underneath the door gave him pretty good indication as to where and when to shoot. It had only been a couple of seconds since he started the encounter, but he already knew that. 2 down, he thought to himself as he heard the thuds behind the door and the curses following it. Fuck! They were reciprocating the shots with random shots of their own. Steve quickly jumped behind the couch he usually read on. Not the best cover he could find, but it was clearly the best in terms of positioning. Shit, if they keep this up for too long, who knows who they could hit? Neighbors, or worse, Eloise. Yeah, he couldn't peek, not yet. Eventually, patience paid off. He heard a voice in the corridor. This is going nowhere! Wait! He didn't have to think, he didn't even have to look. He shot in the direction of the front door and heard a man cry in pain. Get down, you idiot! But it wasn't enough. He had only wounded one of the 2 men remaining. Soon they would rush him, and he would lose the only advantage he had. He spontaneously shot the light bulb on the ceiling, threw his cell phone at the other extremity of the room, then hid behind his cover. He closed his eyes and concentrated on his breathing. Surprise and positioning were his only edges after all. He had to remain calm. When his heartbeat steadied itself, he reached to the mirror in his pocket and held it near the side of the couch in order to have the front door in his line of sight while still keeping his cover. He always had mirrors on him. They were that overpowered. Now you know. The front door eventually opened, but no one was behind it. Where they crouched on each side of it, he couldn't act. He knew that if If he did take that chance, one of them would have a clear shot at him. He couldn't use the same trick twice. Instead, he didn't budge from where he stood. After all, they still don't know exactly where he was. His hand started fidgeting in his pocket as he was apprehensive of what was to come. 2 men finally came inside in succession with their pistols drawn in front of them while scanning the room, as if rehearsing an elaborated choreography. They were well trained, though a bit rough around the edges. If you weren't in an enclosed space knowing they were coming, you would have had no chance at all, but thankfully for him, that wasn't the case. He finally pushed the call button on the phone in his pocket, and almost immediately the phone he had thrown a minute ago vibrated on the floor. The man instinctively reacted to the noise coming from the ground. They turned the opposite direction from where he was hiding. Now! The man closest to him first, then the other one. They both dropped dead on the floor like puppets with the strings cut off. That was way too close for comfort. He wanted to take a breather, but there was no time for such a thing. He walked painfully to the phone on the floor and picked it up. The screen was cracked, but it was still usable. Then he noticed blood dripping on it. Gah. He had been too slow enough that a bullet had grazed his cheek. Not being fully used to his wound yet, the moment Steve had to turn his hips left in order to steady his aim, a jolt of pain ran down his body which stopped his movement for an instant, enough for his opponent to notice him and fire him. At least in the end he was the last man standing, even if it was only a couple of centimeters from not being the case. Now for the rest of them. He had to be faster, way faster, and that's what made the situation so difficult to handle. The fact that he can't stay in this comfortable defensive position changed his odds of winning by a lot. But that couldn't be helped. He didn't want to drop dead before taking care of Mark, and neighbors were also bound to complicate things by calling the cops, which should already be the case by now with all the turmoil they were making. Fast. At the front door, he looked at both sides of the corridor through his mirror. As he thought, no one was on the 3rd floor anymore. Those 4 were probably the only ones that were sent there. He walked out of his apartment, turned left and directed himself towards the stairs. That's when he heard something move behind him. Shit! It had become quiet. There was no longer any sign of struggle. Was it over? Were they safe? What if Steve was hurt? Maybe she should take a look for herself? No. Steve had told her to stay put. He had given her his word, and she would believe him. But there were still so many questions in her head. Why was Roxanne's lipstick underneath Steve's bed? Did it have some kind of relation to her father's lighter? Steve still hadn't explained himself. Why did he lie to her? So she thought she was about to uncover something, but... Pow pow! She put her hands on her head instinctively and tried to make herself as small as she possibly could. Come back, Steve. Faster. He had to take care of this faster. Else... He kept on walking towards the stairs painfully, his right leg bleeding. He was dragging it behind him as if it was some kind of overstuffed, extremely heavy luggage. He had been careless, way too careless. He was in too much of a hurry. He had completely forgotten to check the corpses of those he had shot through the walls. One of them wasn't completely dead yet. Still, Steve was able to notice it on time, but it wasn't enough for him to come out of it unscratched. The end result was he had killed the man, but he got shot through the upper part of his right leg at the same time. It was the price to pay for his carelessness. But this was nothing. This is nothing! He descended the stairs with no concerns for his own pain or his own life. The face of the young girl was the only thing occupying his mind. You could say this was the only thing pushing him to move forward. What does it mean to be a hero? He knew that, even though he now understood what strength really meant, there was something crucial he was missing. He was no hero, but did he really need to be one? He only hoped this missing piece wouldn't get in the way of what he was supposed to do. He had finally reached the 2nd floor. It felt like an eternity, and it was just one simple floor. He had to rely on this. He didn't want to, and he didn't think it would work anyway, but it's not as if he had anything to lose. At worst, this could buy him some time. He took his chipped cell phone out while continuing to move forward. Mark's name appeared on the phone screen. He selected it and called him. Mark answered almost immediately. Hello? You guys are dead. Gah, that little girl was useless after all! I killed her with my own 2 hands. This was the extent of Steve's plan, the stupid lie. Oh really? You haven't changed, you know that? Yeah, so what do you say we finish this like men, you and me? What I meant to say is, you haven't changed. You're still a pitiful liar. A stupid kid who doesn't even know how to lie. I already told you that you were fooling nobody. But I gotta admit, I'm impressed you're still not broken to this point. By this point even. With everything you did. Shut up. Did you tell her who you really are or something? That little girl sounded scared stiff. Oh, don't tell me you're really one of those, you know? Shut up. Stop talking about it. It's between you and me. Sorry, kiddo, but time's up. A dry, acute sound started assaulting Steve's ears. The sound of a fire alarm. You probably don't know this since you've always killed people by surprise, but how do you think you get rid of persistent cockroaches such as yourself? Don't tell me. Are you mad? What about everyone in the building? That's on you, you liable piece of shit. Sounds of police sirens were resounding from the other side of the line. Oh, sorry, but got to go. Your little dance probably terrified more than a few residents. Can't overstay my welcome here, right? And by the way, why do you think we've started the fire anyway? What? Give my regards to that dead little girl, will ya? Burn dead, I mean. His cell phone slipped from his hand. He was assailed by immeasurable fear. The realization was setting in. His body reacted before his mind. Eloise. We're back. I don't know, it feels like we're going somewhere still. What had happened? She had stayed completely still since the last gunshot she'd heard, but then something came crashing down inside the apartment, probably coming from one of the windows. At first she thought nothing of it, but then she saw smoke entering the room from the other side of the door. She knew something wasn't right. She opened the door and saw flame rising up from the middle of the living room. She wanted to flee. She was scared, but... Billhook! Her cat was hiding underneath a drawer, and her arms weren't long enough to reach her. She didn't want to leave her there. She would die like this. She didn't want that. Billhook, come, please. It was starting to get hot. It was hard to breathe. His leg was numb. After the first couple of stairs, he could no longer feel a thing. He was losing blood from the gunshot to his leg. The towel he had used was also soaked in blood at this point. He was sweating like crazy. Dizziness was assaulting him, and smoke was thickening in the air, but still, he was moving. The world could crumble around him. He would still be moving. That's what he believed. People started descending the stairs, alarmed and agitated, but they all stopped when they saw him. All bloody, with a firearm in his hand, he didn't care. He didn't care what people thought before, and he certainly didn't care now. He kept on moving forward unfazed. Eventually they all passed by him, probably more scared of the fire than they were of him. Soon he hit a wall, the third floor wall. Eloise. He opened the door which led to the third floor's corridor, and there he noticed the abundance of smoke coming from one of the apartments in particular. His apartment. Was it because he no longer had to deal with the stairs, or was it simply that the numbness had spread to his whole body? He'd rushed to his apartment with unbelievable speed. He threw the door open. Eloise! The fire was engulfing most of the furniture. It was hard to breathe, let alone see. She wasn't in the living room. Did she already escape? She was a bright girl, after all. But then he noticed the door to his room. It was closed, just like the front door had been. Would someone have taken the time to close the door in such a situation? He put his shirt over his nose, just like Eloise taught him to, and advanced through the thick smoke. When he finally reached his room, he saw Eloise collapsed near his bed. The whole right wall was being eaten by the flames. Eloise! He threw himself at her. His strength had left him the moment he saw a frail body on the floor. He took her in his arms, shaking. He was agitated. He wanted to roar. He couldn't think straight. She was still breathing, faintly, or so he thought. Did she inhale too much smoke? She would die like this. He gritted his teeth. She was heavier than a mountain right now. He managed to get on his feet, but it was not without blood overflowing from the towel around his abdomen. He was about to leave. Adrenaline was pushing him forward, but she said something. She was pointing somewhere. What was it? He didn't have time for this. He glanced at the room quickly and then saw why she'd stayed in this room for so goddamn long. There was an unconscious animal under one of his drawers. A cat. What should he do? What could he do? He couldn't possibly leave without her. Eloise had almost sacrificed her life to save her. He took a knee, knowing how difficult it would be to return to his feet. Blood spurted from his mouth. This wasn't good. He reached for the little thing rudely and went on his way. Everything was blurry. His consciousness was hanging by a thread. He had managed to get out of his apartment, but the fire was already spreading to the rest of the building. The emergency stairs were in front of him. It was a long way down. For every step he took, he had to gasp for air 5 more times. There were holes in his memory. He blinked once on top of the stairs and he found himself in the middle of descending the 4th one. He had Eloise in a bridal carry, a cat in his left hand. They were heavy. He didn't know how long he would last. Again he reached the second floor, this time with even more difficulty than the last. We're halfway there, he thought to himself, to psych himself up. But then he started hearing movement coming from the bottom of the stairs. Was it marksmen? Steve thought they had left since the cops were on their way, but what if they were using the confusion of the fire in order to kill them? He wanted to go back the way he came from, but it was too hard. Ascending was too hard for him, and with Eloise in his arms, he was completely vulnerable. They finally closed in on him. He was apprehensive. He was like a mother bear ready to fight for his loved ones. Then he noticed the color of the man's uniform. Yellow. Those were not hitmen. They were firefighters. They soon noticed him and tried to help. Don't touch her! He was roaring his anger. He didn't know who those men were. He couldn't leave her. He was panting. He was seeing double. He was trying to shake them off furiously. He had pushed away 2 of them, but then 4 took their place. Soon the overwhelming weight he had been holding so dearly in his arms, the only warmth left in this world, disappeared completely. He was grasping at air. When? Where? He was confused. A man was taking her away. He wanted to say something. He wanted to pounce at him, but he no longer had the strength to. A man on each side had put their head underneath Steve's shoulders and were helping him out of the building. Was it really okay? Could he really relax? Was it really over? Could he really trust those strangers? He was so tired. Too tired. Had he done enough? Was this the extent of his so-called strength? What a joke. Eloise. I need to protect Eloise, no matter what. The next moment his consciousness took over. A gentle breeze was caressing his skin. The man had helped him out of the building. He no longer had the cat in his hand. Another firefighter probably took care of her, at least he hoped. He was trying desperately to look around him in order to find her. He was panicking, he was restless. But then she appeared in his line of sight. The man who had taken her away from him was giving her first aid. Thank God. He relaxed a bit. His fears were unfounded. He then noticed the number of police cars in the street. People, residents from the building, were talking to the cops pointing in his direction. So it came down to this in the end. He would lose her, even if he survived. It was only obvious, yet it was still painful. Somewhere deep inside, he always knew he couldn't take care of her. He knew, yet he wanted to believe. Firefighters were still dragging him towards the truck, probably to give him first aid while waiting for the ambulances. Cops would eventually arrest him, and he wouldn't be able to see her anymore. That's when he noticed something strange, something weird. Presentiment? No, something a lot more tangible than that. Light had been reflected in his eyes. It almost felt as if... Then he remembered what Mark had said to him. How do you think you get rid of persistent cockroaches such as yourself? Cockroach. That was the term he had used. But when you take care of a house infested by cockroaches, you don't just burn the house. You also burn a circle around the house in order to contain them. To trap them. You could almost say that burning the house is also a way to make them come out of their hiding. Which meant, with all the strength he could muster, he shook off the man helping him. He looked towards Eloise. She was too far, he wouldn't make it in time. To his surprise, though, she had woken up. He made eye contact with her. He wanted to tell her something he desperately needed to. His lips moved, but words didn't come out. Run! He reached to the gun under his belt, aimed high at where he had noticed light being reflected into his eyes, towards the top of an apartment 200 meters away from them, and shot multiple times in that general direction. He could do nothing else. After all, he was against a sniper. But if he did nothing, the sniper might aim at her. A loud noise came to his right. A shot. A burning sensation. It came without warning. He looked towards it. It was a police officer. He dropped his weapon without really wanting to. Why? Strength left him. He dropped to his knees. Multiple officers were aiming at him, but at least some of them were actually looking at the direction where he had shot. Was it enough? Would the sniper give up knowing his spot was discovered? Steve could do nothing else, because he fell. It was hazy. He could no longer support his own weight. He would soon kiss the floor. It would hurt. Or would it? Probably not. Was it important? No, it wasn't. Eloise's safety was. Did she understand him? Would she survive this? He was sure she would. After all, she's a bride. At last his fall stopped. As he imagined, it didn't hurt. It was warm. A pleasant fragrance came to his nostrils. It made him think of... Sis? Leave him alone! Leave him alone. Don't you see you're hurting him? What are you talking about? We're just playing with him, right, Steve? Right. His sister was always protecting him. Surely she thought she was helping him, but this couldn't be further away from the truth. Let go of him now! Alright, jeez, what a bitch! People were laughing, mocking her because she was helping him. He could do nothing. He was weak. She was standing tall, not minding one bit what others were saying about her. He was jealous of her. If he could be the one protecting her, at least once in his life, then all of this would be worth it. She walked towards him and extended her hand. Steve, are you alright? He promised to himself he would one day protect her. Leave him alone! He's done nothing wrong! He opened his eyes ever so difficultly. They were only half open, but he could still notice he had yet to fall on the ground. He was trembling. No, someone was trembling. Someone was supporting him with great difficulty. Someone somehow so fragile. Someone somehow so strong. Why did you shoot him? He was only trying to protect me. There was a man on the top of that building over there. Didn't you see him? Eloise, why? She should have run. This isn't good. She's right in his line of sight. What if he's still there? He grits his teeth. He tries to move, but he's powerless. There's just no more strength in his body anymore. He tries to speak, but it's to no avail. It's alright, Steve. You've done more than enough. I'll be the one protecting you now. This was hopeless. His consciousness was fading. Would he die without being able to save her after all? Her sister had died because of him. His sister. What? Yeah, his sister had died because of him. She had left him with something so simple yet... Or rather, her mother had died because of him. No? Well, actually, wait, whatever. The last of his strength was slipping away from his body. His eyes started to close. How pathetic. But... Eloise! Something woke him up. A shadow. A shadow was cast on both Eloise and him. It was a small, delicate shadow, but it made him remember his sister somehow. Strong, powerful, warm. It was embracing them. Did his sister come back to life? Did she come to save them? Then his eyes focused, and he realized who it actually was. Roxanne? Eloise said in surprise. Roxanne? Where did she come from? She was standing in front of Eloise, her arms raised in the air as though protecting her. She was in the sniper's sight, standing tall. She was ready to die for the little girl she knows close to nothing about. A smile appeared on Steve's lips. He remembered their conversation in the shelter earlier. So she wasn't lying after all. Guess he win this time. I'll let you save her. It was comfortable, so comfortable, being in Eloise's arms made him sleepy somehow. He apologized to her in his head. He could not respect his other promise. After all, he was out during the night. I am a ciscon. Everything became dark, everything became quiet. Just before losing consciousness, he heard a sound, distant and weak, a dreadful sound. Thank you, Roxanne. Sorry, Eloise. Darkness. Perpetual darkness. He was falling without end. He had a feeling he'd done something wrong, but he could no longer remember what. He had so many regrets in his life, but none of them came to mind. He had loved, he had hated, he had been sweet, he had been evil. If he could, he would try again, whatever it was he had come to regret. Again, in order to find the answer to this question he has no recollection of. Wrong. For some reason he knew something was wrong. Something... Is this how it feels to be dead? Because if it does, then it's painful, really painful. He was hearing something. What was it? How come he had ears now to begin with? Purr, purr? His eyes opened, slowly, sorely. The mysterious noise was enticing him. The sound of a pussy. The first thing he noticed was a small white ball in his chest. Oh, it is also some black, he remarked. It was moving up and down as if it had a life of its own. What a strange little thing. Then eyes appeared on it, deep, compassionate eyes. It looked in Steve's direction, and when it did, it started going even more strongly. The trembles were felt throughout Steve's body. He looked around and understood he was somewhat comfortable. He had been sleeping on a couch with that small living thing sleeping on him. He took that thing in his hand, pushed himself up with far more difficulty than he imagined he would, and took a sitting position. He started petting the thing. Where was he? An apartment, obviously, but something was wrong, awfully wrong, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Then he realized he wasn't alone. A little girl was sat on a 2-seat couch across from him. By that point, he had completely forgotten that something was wrong. Instead, he was curious about her. She was throwing books in the fire in front of her, a fire coming from nowhere in particular. It was as if flames were spontaneously rising from the middle of the living room. She finally noticed his presence. She looked at him and said, "Those are all the books portraying the hero's journey." Then she threw another one into the flames. "Is that so?" he said in a monotone voice. He was not moved or surprised by her claim. He accepted it as a fact the moment she said it to him. "None of them seem to apply to your story, so I've taken it upon myself to rectify that matter." Another one into the flame. "I see." He looked at her for a time, enjoying the blazing spectacle with distant eyes. Then something finally came to his mind. A simple question, nothing worth noting it. He was compelled to ask it, nevertheless. "Why, though? Why?" She stopped her mechanical endeavor with puppet-like movements and emotions. "In order to change reality. Why else?" "But isn't reality just fine as it is? Why change it?" "I don't know. You tell me, Steve." Steve. Steve, that's right, it was his name. Steve. He looked back at her, but she was no longer there. Tried to pet the little thing, but he only grasped air. He was alone in the living room. It was hot. The temperature was rising. The flames were multiplying. His breath was cut short. He was scared for whatever reason. He got up from his seat and tried to get away from this infernal heat as fast as he could. First by trying the front door, but it was sealed shut. Then the windows, but they were also sealed shut. Finally, he noticed a door, a closed door. There were other doors, but this one had something. It was calling out to him, maybe. He walked to it, grabbed its knob, and turned it with force. To his surprise, though, it opened quite easily. He entered the room, and it was only when the door had fully closed behind him that the fire sparked all around him. The little girl was on the floor unconscious in the middle of that hellish display. "Eloise!" He rushed to her. Automatically, he tried to lift her, but he was not able to. It was as if she was glued to the floor. He tried a second time, but still nothing. A third, a fourth, a fifth time, all to no avail. Blood started to gush out from his mouth unexpectedly. The fire was approaching ever so strongly. He then noticed from the corner of his eye the ball-like creature on the floor, motionless. He reached over to it, and somehow he was able to lift it effortlessly. He put it close to his ear, but almost no purr came out of it. Was it broken? Was it dead? Kept it in his hand nonetheless. He wouldn't part from it. Never. A sound came from where he entered, but he didn't care. The fire was warning him, but he didn't mind. He tried for the 100th time to lift her, but nothing had changed. He finally looked behind him, and there she stood, Eloise, with a gun in her delicate hands, raising it towards him. She looked different somehow, stronger, more mature. She opened her mouth and said, "Let go!" But he didn't listen to her. There was probably a way to save her. There has to be. She shot him in the gut, then repeated herself, "Let go!" It was painful, a weird sensation that felt somehow truer than what it should have been. "No." She shot him in the leg, then repeated herself, "Let go." He was gritting his teeth. The pain was unbearable. He turned around and tried again. The fire was almost touching him. I said, "Let go!" She had perforated one of his lungs, then tried to repeat herself, but couldn't. I said, a tear was running down her cheek. She was visibly heartbroken. He was on all fours, blood was dripping onto the unconscious Eloise underneath him. It was painful to even breathe. He wouldn't last long like this. I said, "I need to let go." He closed his eyes. He thought she would shoot at him once again, but no shot came. The pain had disappeared without him noticing. When he opened his eyes, the unconscious Eloise was no longer there. She was never there to begin with. He looked in his hand, and the ball-like creature had transformed into a cat. A beautiful black and white cat. The cat looked at him affectionately, escaped from his hand, and started climbing his arm until he could lay on his shoulder. Until she could lay on his shoulder, because we know it's a woman. Or like a female cat. She was purring really close to his ear. The fire had subdued, the light had become dim, and the apartment no longer existed. Only Eloise, with a gun in her hand, crying like mad, was left underneath a spotlight. He had remembered his reason for being here. His fear disappeared. His anxiety calmed down. His hastiness was no longer present. He looked at his purring companion with a smile on his face before gently tickling her on the chin. He then walked to Eloise calmly with his smile still very much on his face, stopping right in front of her. She didn't look at him. She wasn't even acknowledging his presence. She was simply looking down, crying. Is she at his funeral? Holy fucking shit. He slowly, delicately put his hand on her head, and then he said, "You did well." She finally raised her head. "But it's time to let go." But I don't wanna. You have to. You need to live your life. There's no point living in the past. What's wrong with living in the past? If it's to be with you, then Eloise, you have to let me go. He looked at his friend on his shoulder. Let us both go. You know that, don't you? I can't lose you too. I just can't. You already have. No! Eloise, please. I believe, right? As long as I believe, then you'll be there for me. You told me so. It doesn't work that way. Why not? Because I'm a figment of your imagination. I'm no longer there, remember? You need to listen to me. If you want me to listen to you so badly, then why are you crying so much? I'm not crying. Huh? He touched his face. Tears were rolling on his fingers. He could not control himself. That's why. It's not what you think. It's just that suddenly a force, a warm pressure was enlacing him. She was embracing him, holding him really tight. He could not move. She was so strong, and he felt tired somehow. Thank you, Steve. You don't have to worry about me anymore. I have Roxanne to take care of me now. But you're the one who did well, Steve. I'll forever remember you. He was panting. He had no strength. He was drowsy. He was confused. Take care of Billock for me, will you? She touched the sleeping animal on his shoulder, kissed him on the cheek, then let go. She turned away, walking forward until a golden door appeared in front of her. She reached to it, opened it, took one step forward, but then stopped. She looked in his direction one last time and said, "If there's anything in this world that I truly believe in with all my heart, it is that you are a true hero, Steve." A hero? Him? He was a hero? He remembered. That's what he's been looking for. The answer to that question. Did he really find it? His vision became blurry. He could no longer control himself. Tears were flooding out. He was shaking. So that's what it means to have tears of joy. He looked her way and... "Thank you, Eloise," he said, making a beautiful, truthful smile. They killed the cat for no reason that's so unnecessary. Hard disagree. They killed the cat for him not to be alone. He now is a companion. Wherever he is. That was a spell. Wow. They really went there. And really fucking killed him off. I mean, it's a better ending than... And everyone was well ever after or something, right? That would have really... That would have really soured the whole journey, to be honest. Someone had to die. Something had to happen. And he was the most likely suspect, but also the most... Well, he couldn't have killed her, obviously. Oh. Fuck visual novel devs writing better stories than AAA devs. Yeah, I think it's all about passion rather than money. The AAA developers are paid better, but they don't really care if the story convinces or enraptures someone. Whereas an indie visual novel will have to try their hardest to make everything good. Kind of abrupt, yeah. It would have. I would have liked some kind of credit scene or something, or like some credits rolling down instead of us. Well, we can take a look at the credits like this. Instead of us looking at nothing or this main menu. So the writer and director for this was H-Self. The music was made by Red Robotics. The art director was Velm and H-Self. The background artist was Rastislav Kubovic. The CG artist was Armando Sionosa. And the sprite artist was Sticky Pot 80, which is the most amazing name I've ever heard. Wow. This was fucking great. This was incredible. Give me a quick second. Oh, there's a link to their Twitter here. We can take a look at that. But for now, I'm gonna enter YouTube recording. YouTube. That was The Spell, an incredibly well-made visual novel for an indie one, in my opinion. If you want to support these people, then I don't know if it costs anything. Let me look that up real quick, actually. If I did buy it or not. Or if it's for free. It costs $4, $3.99. If it's on sale, you might as well get it. Otherwise, I think $4 for what I assumed was going to be 3 hours, and now it was about 8. That's pretty good, actually, for a visual novel of that length. I would gladly pay $4 again. I did thoroughly enjoy that. So bye, YouTube. Bye-bye, YouTube. Bye.